Welcome back to another episode of Hashing It Out with Javi. This is episode 13. I'm very excited about this one because this is the first kind of almost serious episode I've ever had.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's serious, but we're going to be talking about some topics that are really important to a lot of people, that affect a lot of people. So I think it's a little bit more weighted than the other ones I had, but it's a good talk. It's a good podcast, and I'm very excited about it. So. I have a guest today. Her name is Carolina. She's been a friend of mine since I was a young guy. I'm guessing 15, 16, maybe younger.
No, you were about 15, 16.
15, 16, yeah, young guy. But so today we're going to cover a lot of topics. She's a professional in the public sector for many years now. I think about 20 years or so.
Don't age me too much.
Looking good, girl. You're looking good.
Thank you.
For about 20 years or so, dealing with stuff like domestic violence, abuse, neglect, substance abuse, many different areas that affect a lot of us. And I think when it comes to this topic, a lot of people are afraid to talk about it. And I don't know I think that doesn't help out. You know what I mean? I think being able to talk about this kind of stuff and put some information out there and maybe some help and those kind of things is good for people. And I think a lot of people will relate to this because I know me personally, growing up as a kid, I came from a broken home and I experienced domestic violence and a lot of other things. And it really shaped who I was as a young man, right? You know what I mean? So I think it's just a topic that I think more of us should talk about. And this feeds into a lot of other topics that I've talked about as well, like mental health and other things, mm-hmm. right? So welcome to the podcast, Carolina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I do appreciate you bringing me on board. I feel like I have a lot to talk about and be able to contribute to you and the community. Tell you a little bit about myself.
Yeah, yes. Tell me all about you.
So I know Javi forever. We grew up in Santa Barbara, so I'm a Santa Barbara girl, born and raised. Education was actually a long-term goal for me growing up. I have parents who are parents of the Chicano movement. Yeah. They all went to UCSB, and my dad was a strong advocate for his daughter to go to get a higher education. So, yeah, I had fun. Javi knew me. We had fun.
Put the mic closer. There you go.
Javi knew me. Wait.
That's better. Okay, there we go. It sounds different when you talk into it, right?
Okay, yeah. Javi knew me and had fun, but always I had that education on my mind. I went to school in Santa Barbara. Dos Pueblos, it's actually Goleta. Grew up in the good land is what they call it out there. Went to Santa Barbara City College. I decided to pursue a degree in social work. From there, I did mess around for some time at college because I really I was having a lot of fun.
Right.
And finally I got the education down. I was able to transfer to UCSB, honor student, which I very proud of. And I decided to pursue a career in working with children and families. So
what was there a reason for that? Like, is there kind of a background to that?
Yes, actually. So my father, he is a local psychotherapist. He was working for mental health in Santa Barbara. So when I was about 9 years old, he took me to his job and he was working with mentally ill clients. And I remember I told him, Dad, what can I do? Something like what you do, but with children. Right. He's like, oh, mija, you can work for CPS, which is Child Protective Services. So from that day on, 9 years old, I knew that's what I wanted to do. So from the onset of high school, I worked in the nursery school there, that we had a nursery school. I worked with kids with developmental delays. I even went, when I was at City College, I started working at an agency called Girls Inc. Remember Girls Inc.?
I know Girls Inc., yeah. Mm-hmm. They're right there by Ortega Park on the east side.
Yep, Ortega Park. I was there.
Ortega Parque, Santa Bruta.
They want to take my uncle's murals off, by the way.
Wait, those are your uncle's murals?
Yes.
No way.
Manuel and Sweat, that's my uncle.
So for those of you who don't know, there's a park in Santa Barbara called Ortega Park. Just going to touch on that for a second. Mm-hmm. All of us that grew up there. I grew up literally 3 blocks from there. And that park was used by a lot. I mean, let's be honest. People were playing poker there, dominoes, whatever.
Señores.
The señores, right? And but there's some big Mexican, like kind of Aztec murals there. I didn't know Mañon's what was your uncle, but yeah. So they're actually going to remove them. They just voted to remove them. So a big part of our what I would call Mexican Chicano culture is being stripped out of Santa Barbara. But it's
a sad day for us because I was a little girl there painting. And how about when we used to swim at that pool?
Exactly, with the duties in the pool.
Yeah.
That pool was the smallest pool ever. There was always a
but it was a fun. We couldn't wait to go to take a part to swim.
Oh man, I didn't know that. I just found out. I actually just read the article.
It's sad
about them removing those paintings, and I was really bummed out. Santa Barbara today, a lot of people look at it as this kind of like super rich, kind of ritzy, kind of fancy paradise. And I moved out of there years ago, and now when I go back, it's just not home anymore. It's different.
It's not.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like home. When we grew up there, it was very much a town, and there was like, maybe 10 families, and everybody knew each other, So, and a big part of the Mexican American culture was there. It wasn't just Mexican. There was a lot of Mexican American culture. There was a first, second generation there, and I'm really sad about that park. So I'm not going to talk too much about it because other stuff to talk really about. But it's going to make me sad. But yeah, I mean that park was like literally it was the junior high, which was 2 blocks, not even 2 blocks, actually like a block and a half across the street. I grew up like literally across the street from that place. So
it has a lot of history, and unfortunately our Chicano history is getting ripped away from Santa Barbara. And my uncle and all of his nephews and nieces, we took a lot of time painting in those murals to touch them up. So it is really a sad moment for us and my family. So
I didn't know about that. Sorry. And Manuel was a big person in the community. So
he's another one that encouraged me to go to school.
So you come from a family pretty much of people who want to give back and help other Latinos kind of excel in life.
Yes, that's absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of us are in this field of helping others. And I think for me, it was the family influences who encouraged me to go on to help the community. And every day, that's what I do. I strive to help families and help children and protect children is my primary role. So yes, I mean, this is just kind of been in the making since I was 9 years old.
That's awesome. I mean, my mom worked in, she worked for the county for many years, right?
I worked with her. I was upstairs. She was downstairs.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. See, small world. Didn't even know that. Holy shit. Yeah. She worked for, I think, almost 25, 30 years in that area. And, she would come home with stories. And the one thing about that, I think that people don't understand is that we're quick to judge the workers that work in this area when they make mistakes. But what they don't understand is things like I saw. My mom would come home and she would just be wiped and drained for the stuff she saw. Like she saw the ugliest of society, And coming from a broken home, I know how bad that can be for people. But even my story is like nothing compared to the stuff that she had to witness. I mean, she would come home and just be torn, and it would be like, man, and there's almost like a level of PTSD that happens for these workers. And I know my mom basically didn't talk about it because I think it's almost like when soldiers come back from war, and I'm not equating the two, but like when soldiers come back from war, they feel like they can't talk about it with somebody who hasn't experienced it. My mom could never talk to me about the things she said. I mean, she mentioned a few things here and there, but I'm sure when she's around her friends from work, because they still meet up and stuff here for their lunch or whatever. They talk cases. And there's a level of just, you don't understand what I've been going through unless you've been here kind of deal, And then PTSD is real in that field for sure.
Absolutely. I've had some experience of that because I've seen the worst of the worst. I've been in the field for 20 years already. I'm aging myself a little bit, but I really wanted to be in this career. So my vision was to help people and be there for people and be, real with people, transparent, and protect children ultimately. So my ultimate role was and has been protecting children and strengthening families, really is our goal as social workers. So like I said, I decided to pursue that career just for that. I ended up getting my master's so I can continue and be more of a clinical approach or provide a clinical approach when working with families. So yeah, it's been a lot of years of education, a lot of years of experience, and a lot of years of trauma that I witnessed.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't change it for the world, honestly. Like, my father does have a private practice, and I could have done the therapy route with him, but I had actually told him, like, look, I need to be here. God chose me to do this work. And every day I'm going to be seeing the worst of the worst, the saddest cases you can think of. but at least I know I'm there helping and protecting and strengthening.
Right.
And so he left me alone. He left me alone and didn't bother me to work with him at the practice. So,
And I'm sure he's super proud of you too.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Yeah,
He's very proud, and he's my best friend, and he's my number one advocate. But and it's weird that he told me that this is what you can do at 9 years old, and I'm doing it. So
right.
So,
at 9.
At 9
At
years
9,
old.
you know what you want to do. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
See, a lot of people don't even have that experience enough. Like, at 9 years old, I'm not even gonna say it's totally not inappropriate, but
Mm-hmm.
I was not thinking about kind of what I wanted to do. So, but that's also touches on it's a really important thing is family. So I often talk about how important it is to have a good family structure. I think today we have a society where everyone's like, I can do it alone, whether it's a male or a female. I can do it on my own. I've been a single full-time dad now for almost 8 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it was the most optimal way of doing things. I did it because I had to. I did it because I'm a father. That's what you're supposed to do. But I made mistakes in that as well. And
that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. And I think that we forget, though, that like it's important for the family structure to be a good one. You know what I mean? Now, I'm talking about having a good mom and a good dad at home is the most important thing to raising healthy kids. You know what I mean?
And parents that are going to take time with their kids, and they're going to teach them morals and values, teach them the importance of education, respect, honoring your elders, like all those things is having that foundation at home.
Right.
And if there is problems in the home, no family's perfect, but talking to your kids, spending time with them,
Hold on. Talk to your fucking kids. I've said this on other podcasts. Talk to your fucking kids. I'm going to say it one more time. Talk to your fucking kids. Put down the PlayStation. Put down the Xbox. Put down the YouTube. Stop sitting at the dinner table with your kids watching fucking YouTube. Talk to your fucking kids and be a parent.
Absolutely. And this pandemic, and I know we're going to discuss the pandemic. It was amazing for me because my whole career, I've been in this field, like I said, 20 years, working long hours as a single mom. Everybody out there was a single mom. I had to bring in the bread to give my son a good life, and that's why I worked hard. Luckily, I had my mom and my dad and everyone else to help me, but I was in the field. I was investigating childhood abuse and neglect cases. I would be on a case 10, 12 hours. I would be with the police. I would be removing children. I would be out there, and I would have to call my mom or my dad, hey, can you pick him up from school? Because I'm on the field. I'm putting kids in my van to take them to foster care. Right. So the pandemic, he was a senior in high school, and now I'm a supervisor now. So I do still head on the field when there's a crisis. So when my crew has a crisis, I'm out there because I still like to interact with families. I still like to be out there in crisis situations. But now that I'm home, I got to spend time with my son. Where I asked him the other day, I said, hey, he said, Mom, I said, hey, this is so cool that you and I get to hang out every day. He wakes up late. He works, the kids are.
Typical older teenager. That's my son's going to be 18 soon. So.
My son turned 19 and he didn't want to, I'm here and I was going to cancel on a hobby, but he's like, oh, I'm going to be with my friends. So luckily tomorrow I'm going to get to have lunch with him. Because, he's going to be 19. It's all about the friends.
Well, it's his birthday today, right? So happy birthday to him.
And he's probably having fun with his friends. He's a little wild, but he's a great kid.
So Caro came on the podcast today on her son's birthday only because he was busy. We were going to cancel the podcast so she could spend time with him, but he decided to go out. He's 19. That's what kids do, right?
Yeah. He wanted to go out with his friends. And he's like, it's okay, Mom. I'm like, well, let's just hang out. He's like, but you have a podcast. I'm all cancel. It's okay. Hobby will be cool. Yeah. No, I got friends. I'm going to go with Liam. I'm going to go with this and this and this and this and that. I was like, okay, whatever. So, but the beauty of the pandemic for me was I got to be a mom and a home mom. And I talk to him every day. He gets up. He's all in a healthy kick right now. Everything healthy. Good. He's making his breakfast, his egg whites and whatever. He sits down. I'm on my computer because I'm working from home and we talk. Yeah. Mom, what about this? Mom. And, he asked me to take him to Cabo.
Really? Oh, that's
He
cool.
wants to hang out with me. He's like, Mom, can you take me to Cabo?
That's cool.
And most kids don't really want to hang out with their parents at 19.
That's true.
So I was very blessed. So we are planning, hopefully, if the pandemic permits, we will be heading to Cabo in like 3 months because he needs his passport. But
That's awesome.
anyways, talking to kids.
Yes.
And my career did take away from my, being the 100% mom there. But when I asked him, how did you feel? Did you feel with that? He said, no, Mom, you gave me everything. Like, I would never change my life. Like, I've been happy. You're always there for me. You talk to me. You've given me a good education.
Sacrifices. You made sacrifices, but he understood the sacrifices. And here's the thing too, that I think is, we're going to talk about this in the podcast, but I should bring it up because it touches home for a couple of reasons. You made sacrifices in your life to help out others, and it was tough at the time, and it weighed in on your home life and your family life. But what we do today literally echoes into different generations, right? So what you and your family have done. So this is like I had a podcast with somebody named Robert Gutierrez, the last podcast I did. His entire family. Yeah. Another friend of ours, right? He has done so much. His family has done so much to give back in the military perspective of this country, right? So what do you do for your civic duty? Like, you doing what you do, your dad doing what he does, your uncle doing what he does, the mural perspective, right? There's 3 different things going on there. If you think about that, you giving back to the kids of the community, your father giving back to different people from a mental health perspective, and your uncle giving back from the arts perspective, are all giving back to their community. And I think it's really important that people understand that the old adage and saying of like, it takes a village to raise a child is so absolutely true. And the problem is so many people take and don't give back to that community. So I admire people like you, like Robert, like your dad, like your uncle. Those things are critically important. I have a person in my life today. I won't mention how I know her, but somebody who is very successful, more successful than most people, driven, had told me a story about her, about how her maybe I won't talk about this. It's really personal, but let's just say that her mother had given back so much to so many people, like thousands and thousands of people. And when she was growing up watching this, she was a little jealous of that. And now she's a super successful woman giving back to thousands and thousands of people. And when she was telling the story, it made me very emotional because she says, on the day she died, I was still a little bit jealous. But when I went to her funeral and I saw how many people were there, that I had no idea even knew who my mother was. There was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who showed up who were just giving testimony to how amazing my mother was to them and how she affected her life. She started crying telling the story. And I thought, more of us have to give back, because it really does take a community to raise a child, whether it's your uncle, your aunt, your tia, your cousin, your neighbor, or somebody working in services like you to help out the community. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So,
and giving back to the community. And I think with raising children, they're going to know that. Like, my son's always going to know. And he's like the nicest kid. I mean, I look at him, I'm like, wow. I'm in Camarillo now, so he went to private school, and all these güeras moms that the white girl moms that were working from home, they kind of like adopted us.
Yeah.
And there was the village for you, right? My mom would pick him up every day. His friends' moms, they all love my kid. They all adopted him. And I was like, God, they probably think I'm like the charity, the only single mom out here working 15, 20-hour days. And they're like, hey, can I pick up Makimo? His name's Makimo. So can I pick him up? And, your son is so great. He's so loving. My son used to be a nerd, and he brought him out of his shell. And my son didn't want to go to any more Catholic schools when he became a senior. I mean, when he graduated from junior high.
He was over it.
He was over Catholic schools. I was devastated because I was like, oh, my kid needs to be in St. Bonnie's, whatever it was. And I found a school in Camarillo. A new school opened up, that Rancho Campana, and all the moms from the Catholic school, knowing that my son was going to be there, they're like, my kid needs to be with your son. Like, we need to keep them together. So 14 kids from the private school went to Rancho Campana.
Building that community.
There was a community, and my son goes over there and they pack him chicken, and they're all the kids are working out and being healthy. You should see them; they're all buff and
All
everything
buff
right now.
now.
Yeah, and
Nice.
they send him with food. These ladies, they're
Yeah.
still taking care of him, and that's they said, your son, we love him and we're going to adopt him. And I was like, okay, cool. You can adopt him all you want. Help me out, girl. Cause I'm really busy over here, but
It takes a village.
it takes a village,
Takes a
you know?
village.
And when I asked him about, okay, you know, I asked him, did you feel like you were without, this was like actually 2 days ago. So it's weird that we're talking about it. And he said, no, Mom, you know what? I knew you were helping people. Like, I knew there was kids out there who needed you, because I had a great mom. Like, you were there, and I was never abused. I was never neglected. I had everything I've ever wanted. Nice house, nice clothes, whatever, private school.
Right.
He's also, I knew that you needed to do that. And besides, I had grandma and grandpa.
Right. Which are important to raise
And
kids
he had his
too.
dad, too.
Yeah.
His dad was equally involved in
I
raising
know his dad
him.
is a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. You know,
Absolutely.
good dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
No, I don't want, that's co-parenting is another thing we could talk about.
co-parenting we can talk about too. We'll keep the focus on kids.
That's another topic. Call me back for co-parenting.
Hijo de su-
Oh, yeah. But co-parenting. Let's talk about that.
Actually, we should do that one for sure. Yeah. But yeah. So essentially, it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a community of people giving back. And I think in today's times, there's so many people taking and not giving. And that kind of falls in line with like things of like domestic violence, neglect, abuse, those kinds of things. Right. So talk a little bit about your experience with, let's start with like domestic violence, for instance, because that's a tough one that a lot of people, and here's the thing, a lot of people deal with this. I dealt with it as a kid. It really jaded me as a teenager for sure. I didn't know what it was doing to my mind, but it definitely echoes into children when they see that. Domestic violence, when you experience it as a kid, it almost becomes a norm, right?
So, as I said, I've been a social worker for several years and now a supervisor. And my primary role was investigating allegations of child abuse and neglect. And due to the economic crisis in California, there's a huge increase of domestic violence.
Right.
Now, considering the pandemic, it's like tripled. So basically,
tripled?
yeah, it's like tripled. I mean,
Jesus.
but it's more violent. I want to say, like, before it's like I go out an investigation or we get a call, hey, mom and dad are pushing each other. Now, since the pandemic, I'm seeing more of physical, more like with weapons,
Jesus,
hurting each other.
because people are stuck at home pretty much full time.
Yeah, well, think about it. You know, people lost their jobs.
Right.
Kids are home, and parents are at each other's necks. Right, they're right there and mad and angry because there's how are we gonna eat today?
Right.
I lost my job. And then the kid's not logging on to Zoom, right? He doesn't want to freaking do school. So the parents are like already over it. So I want to say a lot of reports have come in with extreme violence. I mean, injuries left, broken bones, weapons, stabbings.
Jesus.
Everything. I mean, it's been
So more than typical for sure. Like,
I mean, domestic violence even when I was a social worker, I've seen some horrific situations, even homicides. I've seen everything you can think of. I've been there because there's half the time there's some orphan kids left, right? Mm-hmm. You have triple suicides, and then you have what they kill themselves, and they kill the victim, and then they kill themselves. So you have victim children. We have to figure out what to do with those kids, right?
right.
So I think one of the things that people don't understand about domestic violence is in front of your children, it's a form of emotional abuse.
Absolutely.
So I know a lot of parents don't think it is, but it is, because there's to see violence every day in your household. That's a form of trauma.
Oh,
so you have trauma, you have kids witnessing it, you have kids in the middle, and then you have those kids that try to intervene to protect their mom and protect their dad, because there are male victims too. Let's not forget that.
You hear that? There are male victims out there.
Yes, guys, girls.
We'll talk about that later. But for sure, there's male victims out there, because that's a thing that people kind of either laugh at or think it's not serious.
Mm-hmm. And there is male victims out there. So you have children who try to intervene and protect their kids. And most likely than not, they get harmed in the middle of the incident. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they get stuck and get in the middle. I can't go into detail about cases, but I've seen the worst of the worst because the kids get physically harmed during that violent interaction.
Yep. That's scary, man. That's, I've heard of, I know people personally that's happened to in their families where children were trying to intervene in the fight or physical argument of their parents, and like babies having broken limbs and all kinds of other crazy stuff. And, it's personal things I know of, and it sucks, right? I mean, there's no other way to put it than it's really unfortunate. And I think the most unfortunate thing about it is that like these types of interactions with children create generational curses.
Yeah. And Javi, you and I talked about the generations, and there's multi-generational problems. So when I talk to families, I'm very transparent. Like, look, you need to break the cycle here.
Right.
And I know a lot of people say, oh, why don't they just leave? It's not that easy. People, we can't judge people or women or men of them staying in a relationship with violence. You got to look if there's coercive control, where if I leave, because when women leave a relationship, they're like 10 times more likely to get killed. So they suck it up. And I'm going to just kind of say women right now. Mm-hmm. So they'll stay in there because then, or, you know, we have a lot of like in Oxnard, particularly, I can't even talk right now.
It's okay. You sound amazing on the mic. This mic's they do all the magic for you.
Sometimes I struggle. Sometimes I like when I'm talking really fast, everyone like I'll kind of stumble on words. But there's a lot of erase that one.
You're fine.
There's the Mexican community.
Paisanos. It's okay to say paisanos.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to be trying to be.
We have a big Mexican community. It's okay.
Okay. I want to be politically correct, and I was going to say
everyone on this podcast is fine. There's a lot of So where I live, it's an agricultural farming land area. There's also a big military base, so it's kind of split down the middle between very Mexican agricultural paisanos and military personnel that are from all over the world, actually, not just country. So. Yes, we have a lot of paisanos out here that are working the fields and that kind of stuff. So
a lot of those women, they're dependent on their men, right? They're dependent on their partner, and it's easy for everyone to judge. Why don't they just leave? They should just leave. But if you look at once I do an investigation, I'm asking them, what would happen if you were to leave? And then they said, well, my kid's going to be without a father. Because our culture, we are very driven to be more of the first generation Mexican families who migrate here.
Right.
They're more of like the family system. And second of all, there's financial dependence.
Right.
These families cannot afford to be on their own independently.
Okay.
And then they're afraid to tap into the resources. First of all, they're undocumented. But even if their children are American citizens, they're fearful because of the political climate, right, of immigrants. Yeah. So you're not going to see, I think everyone has this idea, during the last 4 years of immigrants. They are not going to get any aid. Even though their kids are American born children, they're not going to get aid because they're fearful of deportation. So therefore, you have these women who are scared to get aid. If I leave my husband or my partner, my kids and I are going to be on the streets.
Right.
He's going to threaten to kill me once I leave, which is true. The most detrimental time for families is when they leave.
Yeah.
They're actually, even though the moms say to me, I get hit, I get punched, I get whatever. But if I walk out the door, he's going to kill me or take my kids away. So I'm going to stay here and take it because he's going to kill me.
We have to solve that problem.
It's really hard because we are trying to look at domestic violence differently in my agency, because there was a past where when I first started when I was an investigator, I would just tell mom, you better leave or else I'm taking your kid away.
Right.
If you don't, and then we never were trained to look at the contributing factors, the complicating factors that were there, why they cannot leave. So there's been a huge shift Because back then I would take kids because you were failing to protect.
Right.
You know what, Mom? You chose to stay there. Well, I'm taking your kid. I'm taking him away from you.
Right.
You chose. I've told you. I've been out here 5 times already, but you failed to leave him. And this is the 5th time I come to your house, and your kids are at risk, and you're putting your kids on danger. So then it would be like you're failing to protect. So we would label them as perpetrators.
Right.
And there's been a huge shift because if you think of the big picture and you look at your assessment, they're actually not perpetrators, they're victims. So I would have to take them to court, file a petition. So what I do once we know kids are abused and neglected, I have to determine if they're safe to remain home.
Right.
If they're not, then I have to get a warrant and remove a child. And then within 72 hours, I got to make a report, complete a report and take it to court.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And once the judge determines that that kid's safe, or determines that my investigation has enough evidence to keep that child in care or in foster care, then you kind of put it's called a petition count.
Right.
It's like a charge. So basically we're telling these moms, we have a charge against you because you failed to protect.
And it ends up in juvenile court.
Juvenile court,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Which I've experienced.
Well, yes, you have. We can talk about that too if you want to, but that's
we'll touch on a little bit.
Mm.
So I'm going to take this opportunity not to cut out what you're saying, but to kind of also format an apology because I had a podcast, one of my first, 2, 3, 4 podcasts. I don't know which one it was, but I do question and answer podcasts from Instagram, and someone asked me about, how do you feel about domestic violence and women not being able to leave? And my answer to that was like, it's fucking 2020, fucking leave. Like I was just very brash and kind of crass about it. You know what I mean? And while I do believe that you have a lot more resources today than you did, say, 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
And I still do believe that if you're in that situation, there's a lot of help out there and you should get help. I think I was a little bit, again, crass and kind of not very nice in the way I approach that topic. And so, again, if there's women out there who are being abused and hurt and are afraid and those kinds of things, there is a lot of help out there. The way I will say it is that there's no reason for you to be in that situation, and you can get help. And we'll talk about that towards the end of the podcast, about the different help that can be provided to you. But I wanted to apologize for that because I think people probably listen to that and kind of judge me, but it's just because I feel like women are so badass in 2021. They're so independent. There's so many women that are doing fucking amazing things in this world today that, to me, in my minuscule pea brain at that moment when I was saying that, I was like, fuck off, get out of that situation, go do what you need to do to be a badass woman. But some women maybe are in a different situation that I wasn't accounting for. So my apologies to anyone who heard that and was upset about that. I have a professional sitting next to me now correcting me and saying that there's reasons. And I have no problem in saying when I am wrong about something, that I'm wrong about something. I think more people in this world need to be able to start to communicate in the space of, hey, I don't know everything. And if I say some shit that 10 years from now was wrong, I should be able to admit and say that was wrong. And so when I said that, I was probably wrong about that. And so thank you for providing.
Yes. And look, Javi, I know that that's a common response. I was doing that as a professional at one point. You could just leave, girl, just leave. Cause I'll go out there. Hi, my name's Carolina. I'm here to investigate concerns of domestic violence. Right. And then I'll be like, girl, you better leave, get your shit, let's go. And I'm very straightforward with them. And that's why I think in this profession, I get a lot of respect. And these families, even if I've had to remove their child, I get hugs after, because I'm very straightforward. I want to be here to help you. But that was a common response. And I feel bad too, that I would say, you're failing to protect your child. I came here 2 times already. Right. I'm taking your kid. I'm throwing him in the county van, right? And I look back and was like, God, how horrible. But that was just the laws. Those are the practices. Now that we notice the whole development and why women don't leave, I'm going to always say women right now, but there's men too. You're going to understand why we can't expect them to leave.
Right.
And like I told you, and I don't know stats right now. I don't have documents of stats, but women are more at risk and their children when they leave.
Right.
Kids are more likely to be killed when they leave because that perpetrator is so obsessed. He'll do whatever it takes to hurt that mother.
Right.
So I'm going to kill my kid, or I'm going to kidnap my kid. And these women get so brainwashed to think that we're not going to protect them.
Right. And every situation is different, right? So
absolutely every
yeah,
situation.
so,
I mean, I cannot say, I mean, every situation is different and every story is different.
Right.
Every, there's professionals like you and I who remain in these relationships and you wonder why.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's why, like, I think when I said that, again, just to kind of be selfish here and kind of talk about myself for a minute, the reason why I kind of said that is because I come from a mother who left that situation, who said, "Fuck this, I'm not going to do that." And
how long did it take her though?
Let's see. I think my mom finally picked up and left. I want to say I was about 10, 11, maybe 12 years old.
So she endured it for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, potentially. I don't remember my very, very young years. I do remember the tail end years that were bad. My dad was abusive and alcoholic. He was physically abusive. Here's the crazy thing, though. He wasn't a bad dad to me as a father. I mean, he took me hunting, fishing, all those kinds of things, be on his boat all the time. Like, he was a good father. He just fucking, him and my mom they just had it out. He had it out for her for whatever reason. And I think, honestly, it was, in my personal situation, just kind of putting it out there, it was very much generational. My grandfather was very abusive. Mm-hmm. My family doesn't talk about it much, but I've heard many stories of my grandfather on my father's side being very, very abusive, and an alcoholic too, and those kinds of things. And it was very much generational. And to be honest, it carried on to me. I was an angry young man when I was young. Mm-hmm. I was an angry young man, and I had no idea at the age of, and it came out of me when my parents were divorced. I'm sorry, you guys, Muggs up. Sorry, we got Muggs here on the podcast, and he's hanging out because it's raining and pouring outside and thunder and lightning, and he's a big baby. So we brought him into the podcast room, but he's making a lot of noise. So sorry about that if you hear him. But anyways, when it comes to that kind of generational abuse, when it affected me and my Muggs, put him down. Get off the mic. Down. Off. Oh. He just licked the mic, you guys. Sorry. So anyways, when it, by the way, Muggs is my dog for those who are listening. I have no idea who Muggs is. He's my boxer. In any case, moving on. So when it came to me and kind of experiencing how that affected me in my teenage years, I would say between 12 and 17, 18 years old, I was an absolute animal. And I didn't know where that anger and emotion and turmoil came from. I couldn't even put my finger on it. I mean, I'm 41 years old now, and I look back going, holy shit, that makes sense now. Because, what is a few years after they were divorced and after that stuff happened, after I witnessed things, how did that affect me? And I look back and I go, of course that affected me.
It's trauma. You witnessed trauma. Yeah. It's trauma. What people don't understand is children, even though what I would go out, they would say, oh, my kid was in the room.
Right.
They didn't see anything. They were asleep. No, they were not.
They
asleep.
Heard you through the door.
They heard the violence. They heard door slamming. They heard dishes being thrown. They heard screaming, crying, yelling. That is a form of trauma. Yeah. So what people don't understand is that when they do get into any domestic disputes or violent interactions in front of their kids, it's a form of trauma.
Right.
It's a form of emotional abuse. And that's why we get called out to assess for that. But you brought something very important for generational. And absolutely what happens is your children, let's say they witness violence. This is normalized for them. This is normal behavior. Yep. This is my family system. This is how my parents communicated, right? This is normal.
Right.
So most likely than not, and even statistics are out there to prove that these kids are going to have violent interactions in their relationships.
Yep.
Because that was normal behavior in their household.
It's almost like they seek it out.
Mm-hmm. And women are more prone to statistics. I'm not just, with experience, but of course there's a lot of statistics and research behind this. Women are more prone to choose men that are abusive. Hey, my dad used to slap my mom around. This is normal.
Right.
It's normalized behavior. So you're going to see and when I do go out there and do my assessments, I'll say, tell me about your childhood. And we asked now. Before we didn't ask. We never asked about, well, I was always one that liked to, because I have a dad who's mental health therapist. So
you have a good dad.
Yeah, my dad.
So you didn't have daddy problems, so you were good.
I didn't have daddy problems. No way.
It's like those are daddy problems, bro. They get you every time.
Yeah, no daddy problems. No.
My problem is I see the red flags and I run away from them. I run to them like, come here, girl.
Of course he would beat your hobby mad. No, I have no daddy issues. I was very lucky with the dad, but a good dad.
Yep.
And he's still my best friend today. But nevertheless, women have statistically would find men that are just as abusive.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, I think it goes for boys too. Because for some reason, I was attracted to turmoil in my younger years. Like I was attracted to girls who were fucking
chaos.
crazy.
You wanted chaos.
Crazy. Yes.
Chaos
like
was normal.
Chaos was something it was normal to me. And I wanted this crazy shit. And I mean, let's be honest, girls that are crazy are.
You like tóxicas.
Toxicas are crazy in bed. So it just goes hand in hand, and then it becomes like this thing that becomes a compulsive thing in your brain that like, this is okay. This is natural. And it's not. And for the longest time, I was just tied into that. And people would be like, I mean, the hottest chicks can be the craziest chicks. And I dated the hottest chicks ever. And they were crazy, batshit crazy.
Hobby did have good looking women all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
Fucking Hobby.
but
I do remember all that.
Yeah. But what's crazy is like today, now at my age, it took me many, many, many years to realize like, because here, let me say it this way. I remember talking to an uncle of mine and I was saying like, man, like these bitches are crazy. Is how I said it because I was young, These bitches are crazy, man. I did all these crazy bitches. They end up being bitches. They're crazy. And he's like, are you sure it's them? Or are you attracted to crazy bitches? And that was one of the most defining moments in my life. And I remember I was probably like, man, my mid-20s maybe. And I thought, it's not them. There's one common denominator here. I'm the problem. I'm attracted to crazy for some reason. I'm attracted to chaos. I'm attracted to this thing for whatever reason it is. And I had to really take back and kind of take a deep breath and go, shit, I'm the problem.
And what if you found a santita? She was all calm and cute.
As long as she got booty and she can.
No, but if she was calm, you probably would have been, she's boring.
Well, back then for sure. Yeah.
But now.
Well, no, you know what? Because I knew some women that were really good women to me that were really nice and sweet and that kind of stuff that to this day I still respect and look at them with respect. And that's what I always tell people. Like everyone's like, oh, because she's a baddie and blah, blah, blah. I don't care about any of that. Like, sure, would a man hook up with that? Absolutely. But am I going to make a life with that? Absolutely not.
No.
Even back then I knew that. But my brain was still searching for the next wild, fun thing. You know what I mean? And that was it. Like, I mean, I just was attracted to crazy, even it went on through my 20s until like early 30s where I was like, ooh, these crazy girls are wild. And then I finally realized one day in my 30s, because while it's a plus, it's a huge negative. Like as you get older as a man, there's a lot of young women who like older men. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I realized as I started like owning houses and having a great career and kind of having a stable life and being a full-time father that like, sure, I can hang out with this 23-year-old and have the greatest time of my life. Me at 41, there's still 23-year-olds throwing themselves. You know what I mean? Yeah. I can hang out with.
It's different. Well,
but them bitches are crazy.
Women like little cups too.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with little cups.
But. Yeah. But what I'm saying is like, them girls are crazy. You know what I mean? Like, and so I realized like, I started to think to myself in my early 30s, like, okay, I am absolutely attracted to crazy. Like, and I got to stop doing that. You know what I mean? But that was something that I really truly believe was brought about in my youthful experience of kind of a chaotic kind of thing because I didn't know any other way to get attention or to feel loved or excitement unless it was a crazy environment.
And it's one of those things like with my assessment when I do when I do my investigations and talk to these women, I'm like, well, what happened in your childhood? Oh, okay. Well, my dad, blah, blah, blah. And he hit my mom and whatever, so, but then I asked him about their relationships.
Right.
What was it in this besides what kept you there? And they would say, oh, because you have the cycle of violence. So remember the cycle of violence. There's research that demonstrates you have like the hearts and flowers stage. Oh, everything's great, right? Everything's perfect. I love you. All passion, love, hearts and flowers, woo woo, unicorns, right?
Yep.
And then you start getting, it starts building, and then it gets into like, they start arguing. There's going to be arguments. There's going to be jealousy, controlling jealousy. There's going to be, but then the women like, oh my God, he's so jealous. It's so cute. He's jealous. And I'm looking at them like, jealousy is not a healthy thing.
Toxic as fuck.
Yeah. Oh, he gets mad if I dress up, or he got mad because my neighbor was looking at me, and I'm like, that's insecurity. But a lot of women think that when a man is jealous, that's a form of love, right? And acceptance.
They probably come from toxic youthfulness or environments.
So once, so hearts and flowers, I love you, everything's fine and dandy. Then you start seeing some anxiety, some argument, some drama. And then it goes on, and it goes to a blowout. You have a huge blowout, which usually filled with violence. It's emotional abuse. And emotional abuse, ladies, when people tell you you're fat, you're ugly, you bitch, no one's going to like you because you're single, all those things, that happens in that stage because the men use it as a form of control.
Yeah. Hey, but that happens to men today too.
Absolutely.
I've had women tell me some horrible shit during breakups.
Oh yeah,
and I'm
women
like,
do it too.
She
Like
destroyed my self-esteem. Bitch, what the fuck?
You're not gonna find anybody.
Yeah,
Look at you.
I had some horrible shit, man. I had women just berate me during breakups. So I was like, and that shit fucked me up for a long time. And I was
emotional
like,
abuse. It's one of the hardest things to get over, and that's why I tell everybody, yeah, you can get hit, and a bruise is gonna go away in a week. But the emotional detriment that's left after you have your partner telling you you're fat and ugly, you're good for nothing, you're dumb, nobody's going to want you because you're going to be a single mom. All those things come up.
Right.
So that's why women have a hard time leaving. Yep. Because these men, this happens to men too, but I just so used to talking about women, and most of the studies are about women, right? So they get so caught up in that. Well, no one's going to love me. I'm fat and ugly. I'm going to be single. Oh my God. So that's a form of control. So you have the cycle of violence, control, there's power. The men, exert their power, and then they have a big blowout. And then next thing you know, the next day comes, I'm so sorry. I love you. They have passionate sex. They make out. The sex is fantastic. And then you go back to the hearts and flowers stage, right? And then it goes back. The cycle keeps going and going and going.
Random question for you though. At what point do we start to ask women to stop going back to that? Because for me, for example, exactly what you're talking about, I've done from a male perspective and a female perspective, not from the power perspective. Well, no, I take that back, because the power she had over me was just passion, love, sex, those kinds of things, right? I've been the same victim of that from a male perspective. Mm-hmm. So I want to get to a point, hopefully at some point in life, where we can explain to people that you don't have to be stuck in that, whether you're a male or a female. Because I feel that there's a passionate draw between both sexes that can be super toxic.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's so hard, because I don't know if you all know this, when intimacy, especially for women, and again, I'm not a researcher, I'm not a doctor. We're not counselors or offering any advice whatsoever. Yeah.
We're just two friends talking, just to be very blatant.
Okay, because I just want to be correct in that. What I read and I've seen is that every time women have an orgasm, it's the same hormone that's producing as when women breastfeed. That's true. So when you breastfeed, that's the bond,
that's
right?
That's why I'm making them crazy, huh?
I think something's happening.
Since I was like 15, since you knew me.
I think that's what's happening, hobby. I'm going to say fucking hobby.
Oh, boy.
So
it makes sense.
Women, at the end of the day, think about it, women out there, you can't really have booty calls because you get attached. Because when you do orgasm, you are going to have that hormone that's released, the same hormone that's released when you're breastfeeding. And the breastfeeding forms bonds, right? So then you get that bond and attachment with your child. It's the same thing with your partner.
Are you guys listening? We're learning some shit on here today. And by the way, again, we're not taking any advice. We're not doctors or scientists, whatever.
Yeah.
Just going based upon what we know, what we read scientifically.
And just, based on experience and knowing and learning. I love to learn. I'm always reading shit. I'm always studying. I'm always talking to people. I'm always learning. I love to learn about people's stories.
Yeah.
And I'm the social worker that would, even as a supervisor now, I'm still out in the field. I meet my staff out there because I think I want families to know who I am, because actually families, like, I want to, because when you're a worker, you're a social worker out there, nobody likes social workers.
Well, yeah, they don't. Yeah,
we have a negative reputation, especially
for
with
a reason. It could be a pain in the ass for people.
We're the ones that knock on your door and say, hey, are you abusing your kid?
Right.
Right.
I had that happen to me when I got focused on my kid. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That shit's not fucking fun.
It's not fun at all. It's very challenging. And then we have the Gabriel Fernandez case. I know I don't really want to touch on that too much, but
we should talk about it though, because well, let's keep going on with not being we'll get back to that one, because I do want to touch on that a little bit.
We will touch on the child abuse. Reasons. Yeah, that thing, that case is crazy.
But social workers not being the most accepted people in the world. And part of it is because
we're known as the baby snatchers. Oh, you're just going to hear and take my kid, and you're getting. Everyone has that mentality that we get like a
quota. You're not getting a quota. No, I think more what it is, to be honest, when I went through it, is more that the person I was dealing with in my household, who knocked on my door, came into my fucking household and started questioning me, was questioning me from a very asshole perspective to me at that moment. But what that person really was doing is people got to understand that people in this position have to deal and see some of the harshest things in society. So if you see that 100 times, and then you go to the 101 person, case, and you walk in their house, and out of those 100 times you've seen horrible things, of course you're going to be a little bit disconnected from people's kind of experiences and reality of what that means. So in other words, like, the person who came to my house was very disconnected in the sense where they were asking me questions and being very crass and very kind of like upfront and rude, and kind of asking me if I was a piece of shit, if I was a molester, if I was all these things. And I'm like, hey, fuck off, fuck you. You're in my household, you piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, the reason why I have custody of my kid is not because of me, asshole. It's because of the other party. You know what I mean? Yep. And here you are asking me these stupid ass questions. Like, if very when you're in, I think when anyone's interrogated,
because you felt interrogated. You're in my space. You're coming here asking about my life. Look, we have changed as an agency. We know, well, at least for myself speaking, I knew. I think it's the mental health side.
Yep.
And what I've grown up with, and I would just come and hear their stories, and I would say, hey, I know this is very uncomfortable. I have some, concerns about your child being abused or whatever it was. Right. And one thing that was funny, though, I want to say, is that I always was let in the door. Because if you see me, they're like, oh, I like your lipstick. Oh, you look so cute. Come in with your...
your hair's so pretty.
Yeah. Oh, and then they would let me in. I'll be like, okay, I'll come in. I'm like, hey, girl. And I'm really like, hey, girl, like, I'm here to come talk to you. Look, like, I know it's very uncomfortable. But I think one of my main things was making that family feel comfortable. Yes, there has been asshole social workers.
But there's a lot of them that are like that. I think you are a gem amongst a lot of people. You're a gem amongst a lot of boulders is what I'm saying.
Yes, and we've noticed that as an agency, and there's a lot of training. There's a lot of, we have moved completely, or like made a 360 in our agency, because it's all about engagement. Good. Because, and I would tell my staff, I was a training supervisor for 4 years. I trained those new social workers coming. I'll be on the field with them, and they'll be like, wow, people let you come in. I'll be chit-chatting. And I would spend time with families, 2 hours with them. And my favorite community is the Mexican community, Latinos.
Yo la raza puto.
I didn't speak Spanish coming from Santa Barbara, but now I'm fully bilingual.
She was a total coconut, by the way.
Yes, coconut girl, coconut. I mean, everything. I learned Spanish at City College. Right. And then just traveling and being on the field, I kind of had to force myself to learn it completely.
And now she can order Corona without even having to speak English. Mm-hmm.
I have an accent now. I know I knew, I could go in Mexico and I can talk all day long. Like, it's crazy. But I think one of the goals of our career now is engagement.
That's awesome.
And
so how long has that been going on? Just curious. Like when was the change? And let me tell you, I'm asking a question for a reason, because I think you guys suffer from the same thing police suffer from, which is a really good marketing campaign to say, hey, 99.999% of us are good. It's that 0.1%, or let's just say 95% of us are good. It's that 5% of us that are pieces of shit. But that's in anything you do, right? So if you have a BMX bike riding club of 40-year-olds been here riding bikes throughout your city, like 95% of those guys are probably awesome dudes just trying to hang out and have a Bud Light and ride their bike.
Yeah.
But there's those 5% that are probably pieces of shit. You know what I mean? Well, so you guys suffer, I guess is what I'm saying, from not having the proper voice to say, hey, there are people like Carolina in our organization who do these things, these great things, and this is why they do them, and this is how they do them, and this is amazing, versus saying, like what happened to Gabriel Fernandez, for instance, right? Gabriel Fernandez, for those of you who don't know, is a case of a young boy, and I think it was in Palmdale. And we'll touch more on that subject a little bit later, but he was killed by his parents, and it was a horrible, horrible situation, and the child welfare services failed in a lot of areas. But that's one case of like millions of cases probably that you guys deal with that was super highlighted, but it was a gross case. So what I'm getting at is that like you guys lack the same thing the police lack, which is someone saying, hey, we saved 1,000 lives this month. We took 2, which fucking is, I'm not saying this is okay.
Yeah.
But I'm saying is that we're not highlighting the positive things that you guys are doing. We're only seeing the negative things because of the news, Netflix, those kinds of things.
Yep. And after the Gabriel Fernandez trials, it is a horrific case, and I've investigated several cases similar of that nature. Right. So yes, I have a lot of experience in severe child abuse cases, and knock on wood, I've been lucky. Very lucky that I've had management and supervisors, even myself as a supervisor, I had to supervise similar cases. But yes, there's always that that Gabriel Fernandez scared the shit out of us, because now I'm a boss and I'm supervising 80 plus cases or 100 cases, and I need to be on top of it, because guess what? I might go to jail.
Right. Yeah, they put charges on those caseworkers.
Yeah,
right?
though they went to jail. They went to jail, and I think
did the old lady go to jail?
Yes,
she got off. She went to jail.
Yes, but they got off like when they took it to appellate's court. We know a lot of us kind of stopped following it because it was a lot of trauma for us, and it scared me. I think the first time in my whole career, I've always been scared.
Right.
I've always been hypervigilant though of my supervision, even in my work when I was a worker. I was always making sure, because I have kids' lives at hand, right? I have the community watching me. I'm a government official. I need to make sure that my T's are crossed and I's dotted, right? So
all the while you're just trying to give back. That's crazy. That's what people need to hear. We need to stop bashing the workers, because my mom was one of them for many years, and until
we get bashed, we get abused a lot out there.
Oh my God, it's crazy. And until you see your mother or your wife or your sister or your cousin who's doing this thing for a living come home completely wasted and just drawn out like this, these things take a toll on them. And again, I'm not saying that all of them aren't making mistakes, because for sure they're making mistakes, but everybody in any group of any society makes mistakes. Give me a soccer team of 20 people. 2 of those motherfuckers are pieces of shit. Give me an NFL team of 40 players. 5 of those guys are pieces of shit going to jail and causing problems and beating their wives. Give me a segregation of any population as a group. There's going to be problems. We're not all perfect. We have to have society stop looking at everybody as if they're fucking perfect.
Yeah. And I think the Gabriel Hernandez, like, we're
Fernandez.
I'm thinking about
I know, it's my last name. Oh shit, she let my last name out. Just kidding.
So,
Javi Hernandez.
Yes, that's why I was getting confused. So those cases really scared the living lights out of us. Oh. And I've always knew that I have a job with high liability, but I knew because of that, I'm going to do the best I'm going to do. And I'm going to do complete thorough assessments and investigations. I'm going to ensure that families get the services they need to be successful. And I'm going to consult with my upper management.
Right.
So it's not just me. And I'm not going to be the ultimate one making decisions. Even now as a supervisor, I'm calling my management when it's severe cases. We have changed a lot. We have kind of like cops. We'll get to, when cops put those graphs up and big cases. So we all have like a team now. When there's very critical cases, there's a team of us there. So we'll have a worker investigating, but there's a whole team of us making decisions. So like I said, that opened the eyes, because I realized I'm lucky. I've been very lucky. And I still foresee myself there probably another 20 years before I retire, but you never know.
How many you've been there doing 20 years already?
20 years. 20 years.
Praise your soul for that.
And
20 years of giving back, people. What have you done? What the fuck have you done? Have you even thrown a picnic to help out the homeless? What have you done? All right, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, and sometimes it's funny because people you want to do a GoFundMe, donate money, do all these other things. And I'm like, you know what? No, because I do it every day of my life. Yeah. I'm doing the job. And my dad calls it God's work. And I'm not very religious in nature, but when I look at what I've chosen my career to be in, I'm like, fuck, what the hell was I thinking? A lot of the times, fuck, this shit is crazy. I've seen the worst. I've been told off. I've been threatened, but more in Santa Barbara, I got threatened.
Really?
Only.
Do you end up in court for some of this stuff? Do you have to go testify?
Yes.
See, that's the other thing that people don't realize, man, is
I was on a case really horrific. I walk in the door, kid is black and blue. I mean, I have I have a lot of cases under my belt, but this one I remember. You know how the court system is. I had to go 4 years later to testify.
Jesus Christ.
So there you talk about the re-trauma.
Right.
Social workers are traumatized every day. We go out there and we see the worst of the worst. We see kids abused. We see injuries. We see drugged out moms. We see...
Jesus.
We see, I mean, I can't even, I don't even, it's kind of sad to tell you.
Bitches in their couch saying, Jack in the box, Jack in the box.
Yeah,
you know
I see moms with, I've
really
seen
struggling.
kids that ingested drugs because their parents are, doing drugs, and they leave their drugs right there laying around because they're high or passed out. And so kids inject drugs and they're in the hospital fighting for their lives. I've seen it all.
Mugs off. Push them off. Sorry, guys. Muggs is trying to get on the podcast. Get him off.
Oh, he's so cute. I have a dog right here giving me lots of attention.
Normally he's on the podcast, but from afar you can hear him. But today he's in the actual podcast studio because of the rain and thunder and stuff. And he's been a big baby. So sorry to interrupt. But back to your story about all the experiences you dealt with that are, and again, my mom, I'm telling you, man, my mom would be drained. To this day, she talks about how drained it is, and she won't bring up specifics. She has a couple times, but I think it's so hard for her to bring those up because it breaks her, and she'll cry. You haven't seen what I've seen. Yeah. You've not seen the ugliness of this world. This world is fucking ugly, and people like me who aren't fucking NFL rock stars getting paid millions of dollars are going out handling these situations. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And
your mom was there. I remember your mom totally. She was downstairs. I was upstairs in Camino del Remedio.
Yep. Yeah,
your mom
by the county jail.
And obviously
by the county jail.
Yep, we were by the county jail.
Well, I was out a couple times.
I knew it was her. I knew it was your mom, but I never said, "Oh, I know Raul," and I know Javi. I never went over there because I was a little, we used to party at your house, so I was a little scared to go.
Catalina was partying at my house, and my mom was working with her. See how that goes?
So I was scared to tell her, "Hey, I know your sons," but yes, I mean it's a lot of trauma that we experience, and I want you to know that social workers, our hearts are there. Right. And now with this day and age, our goal is to keep families together. We're not trying to take kids away anymore. I'm going to tell you, the program I supervise, we try to keep families together. If you tell me, "Hey, Gato, I'm doing drugs, I need help," well, I'm going to do whatever it takes to help you so your kids could stay home. Because, kids are worse off in foster care.
There's a double-edged sword to that, though. But keep continuing. I'm going to bring up my thoughts on that because I've experienced that too.
But my program has the proper support. So my program will be visiting you once a week to ensure that those kids are safe. And we bring family in. So Javi, I'm going to pretend it was you. I have concerns if you're doing drugs or whatever. Your kid's neglected. Well, I'm going to call your mom. I'm going to call your dad. Hey, I want you to ensure that your grandson's going to be safe. So I'm going to need you to come visit every single day and ensure child safety, ensure that child's safe. Meanwhile, my social worker is going to go once or twice a week to make sure Javi is in his drug program.
Hey, I don't do drugs, just for the record.
I'm just making up the stories, but so those are the things that we do now because kids in foster care are either the statistics, they're either in prisons, they don't get a college education, they're trafficked. Kids are trafficked, and it's just foster care is not the best thing at the end of the day. But if we do absolutely have to remove kids, now before I would just see, I'm taking a war, I'm taking kids. Right. We have to legally find a relative. So let's say your brother. So
this is called reunification, right?
Reunification.
Okay,
yes.
that's the term for it.
But so once we remove a child, parents have the right to reunify. So I know a lot of people wonder, hey, how come you're giving their kids back? Right. It's not that easy though to get your kids back because you're going to have to go through courses. You're going to have to take parenting.
Ask my baby's mama. It ain't. I've had full custody now for almost 8 years.
You got full custody. Yes.
For almost 8 years. Did. You know?
I'm assuming that she did not do her program to get her kids back.
Once she realized how hard it was going to be, she gave up and moved on. Had other kids and another marriage. And
And hobby, like I'll remember that with you as far as, 8 years ago when you called me, and we're not going to talk specifics, but you are that dad that did it all. And there's those parents that they fight for their kids, and that's what you did. You have to fight for your kids. Yeah. And every family out there, and I don't think you guys know this, they are given the opportunity to reunify. If I do have to take your child away, you can do whatever it takes, and I'm going to help you there. I'm going to hold your hand along the way to get your kid back.
Right. That's my point, though. The reunification process is a double-edged sword because
it's hard.
When I was going through it, though, there was somebody there who had molested their daughter in the court case. It was a weird court case, and we weren't supposed to be hearing this. I was outside doing my thing in a sense. But the reunification was like at all costs. The intent here is to reunify you with your kid no matter what. And I remember thinking like,
are you sure?
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. And I was blown away. I was like, holy shit. Like this dude, in other words, it wasn't that they were going to give him his kid right away. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like, you would have to have like supervised visits for like a number of years before you could actually have custody.
No, I think you're a little bit off there as far as
I remember that case because I was like, holy shit, is that real?
He's okay. So with sexual abuse, there are laws there that you will never get to reunify your kid with your kid.
So they may have made a mistake on that case because what I was hearing on that case, I was like, dude, this reunification is insane. Like you can absolutely abuse your kid at the remove sexual abuse though. Let's say I have a kid.
Remove sexual abuse.
Let's remove sexual abuse. Let's say I have a child and I abuse that child, that I break that child's limbs from abuse. I could still reunify with that child, right?
Not necessarily.
No?
Especially, there's some codes out there. There's codes that for severe physical abuse with broken limbs, broken bones, it's called a bypass. There's a lot of legal terms I don't want to get too into.
Yeah, we don't get too
into it. Bypass means that we as an agency do not have to authorize family reunification services. Okay. Because there's those severe heinous child abuse to include sexual abuse. We don't have to. But it takes a long time in court because then that parent, probably what you saw, was trying to get FR services, which we call it FR, guys. Family reunification, but he has attorneys, so he has a right to fight it like in every criminal case. Right. But if it's severe sexual abuse, where we know that this child was in fact a victim and he was charged? Absolutely not. He's not getting his job.
This kind of leads me into something I want to talk about too, is mistakes by the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the system is not perfect.
Nope.
And people need to understand that. It helps out, let's call it 98% of the people out there. But there are those times where it really does break down and it does make mistakes. I could talk about that from a personal perspective. I don't have custody of my son. I haven't had full custody of my son for almost 8 years now for no reason, right? I have that for a reason. Now, while my son was not abused, there was other things going on in the household that were very abusive. I won't dig too deep into my personal experience out of respect for my son and because we have moved on past that. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that my focus in life after that moment that had happened, which was May 4th of 2013, I remember like it was yesterday. Mm-hmm. My main focus after that moment in my life was to make sure that my son was taken care of, healthy, and supported. And that was it. I didn't care about anything before that or anything after that other than that. And that was my focus. But the system really did let my son down. It let me down. And it let down other people down from a safety perspective. And it was really only after I had hired a lawyer and other things to figure out what was going on that I realized that the police department of Ventura County, I'm going to go ahead and say it, had made some serious mistakes, grave mistakes. People should have ended up in jail, but they didn't because of their mistakes. And so there are mistakes to be made. Now, with that said, as horrible of a mistake as that was, I still didn't care because I was going to be given the opportunity to raise my son and to keep him healthy, or to bring him from a place that was really horrible and terrible to a healthy and place of him being able to function highly in society as an okay kid, because he's always been an okay kid. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it wasn't about that, but people need to understand that the system is not perfect. It's going to fail you. It failed me, you guys. It failed me so bad that I remember, and this is a very personal thing to me. It's really hard for me to talk about, but when I was given the court paperwork about what had happened, and again, this is not against my son. My son was fine. But when I was getting the paperwork, I remember picking up the phone and calling my mom, and it's really hard to talk about, but I cried like a baby. Mm-hmm. I said, Mom, I don't understand this. I don't understand how people can do this to a child. I don't understand how people can do this to anybody. And I cried I literally sobbed like a baby on the phone. It was really extremely difficult for me to talk about. But even after that, because the system failed and the system was more worried about lawsuits and millions of dollars of being lost in this county, or the city rather, than taking care of a child, the system fucking failed. And so systems fail. In the case of Gabriel Fernandez, in my case, there are failures out there that happen. But even in my failure, I still want people to know that the vast majority of people out there, whether they be police, social workers, those kinds of people, they care. They do care. They do want to make a difference. It's fucked up is what I'm saying. But and it affects everybody. And it affected me. It affected me and my son. It affected our lives.
Yeah. And, and I always tell families, and, Javi, I've been there with you through the beginning of this, and it's an unfortunate situation, but you stepped up to the plate and giving your son the best life. And absolutely, there's always going to be mistakes. Absolutely. But no.
Mug drinks scotch. Sorry. Whenever I get sad, Mug drinks scotch with me. So he's having to drink scotch.
Like my eyes are tearing up here too. And that's me. That's me. I will cry with my clients. And sometimes and I want you guys to know there with the system, we work within the system. So there's laws and mandates that we have to abide by. So sometimes I'm like pushed up against a wall. Right. I will advocate the opposite, but I can, when you have laws in place that states the law comes, these are state mandates, right? We follow state mandates, state laws. So, for us to know that these mistakes happen and there's some unjust situations, it is horrific and it's unfortunate. I think every day we try to improve our practices, and we're seeing all those mistakes.
Right.
Every day we're seeing those mistakes, and training is different for us. Engagement, teaching, we want people to have the proper education. We want people to have the experience. We want people to come into this field with hearts, because there has been a lot of mistakes, right. And we're not perfect.
We're human.
We're not perfect, and but we have laws and mandates. Look at he's slobbering because he wants more scotch.
I know he wants more scotch. Stop slobbering.
Look at him. The dog is actually like slobbering because he wants more scotch.
You don't get more scotch, bro. You already had a shot. That's all you get.
Okay. So,
No. I'm not bringing it up to chastise anybody.
Oh no, I know, but
I'm bringing it up just to make people aware that the court system, the system in general,
it's hard.
It's hard. Yeah, it covers so much, but it can't cover everything.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, it really fucked a lot of people over. You know what I mean? The system is just, it's not broken. I hate when people say the system's broken and we need to revamp it. No, what it is, it's one of those things that is really, really hard to get everything all encompassing to be like, we can save everybody. You can't do that.
You can't save everybody. You know? And again, like I said, we have laws and regulations that we have to abide by. We have policies and procedures to abide by. We have all these things that we have to revolve our job around. Right. Like I have to abide by these laws, but I do want to tell you all out there is that we are there. Like our primary goal now is to really work with families. Right. And ensure that you're getting the help you need. Because there's a lot of help out there. There is a lot of help. We're not the big bad wolves that want to be baby snatchers. We absolutely do not. Nobody wants to take kids away.
And that's changed. So it's important for people to understand that has changed. So there was a time where if you fucked up, you did some bad things, they're going to take your kids from you. But nowadays it's a little bit different. Things are getting softer. They're changing.
We're trying to really work with families because you have those complicating factors that I talked about earlier. And complicating factors is a big term in in my agency. There's complicating factors. Right. Those are complicating factors that we can work with, and there's help to fix those complicating factors. So yes, we do whatever it takes to keep families intact, but if their kids are absolutely abused and we can't, yes, we will do our jobs and protect children. Right. And that's the bottom line. And
that's all that really matters, right?
At the end of the day, we have to make sure that kids are safe. Kids deserve to have a good life.
What about women, battered women, that kind of stuff?
Battered women, kids. I mean, we really try to help families too. That's good. And even if you're that dad that's in the down and outs, Dad, I'm going to give you a chance. Yeah. I want you to do these services. I want you to go to class, do this, and you'll keep your family together, or you'll get your child back. Right. So. Yes, there's mistakes out there, but we are really trying to improve those mistakes and really look at the family system in various, with various perspectives. We no longer have that. I remember when I first started, it was like, oh, I need to take this kid away. Like so easy. But now, like taking away a kid is not easy. Like,
that was 20 years ago, by the way.
Yeah, 20 years ago, by the way.
20 years ago. She's grown up a lot, people.
But I don't look like, I'm not trying to age myself. I started at like 12. So like, I remember 20 years ago when I first started, I just remember that's just my job. I would go in there, I'd take the kid away and whatever, put him in foster care. Right. Now we have to legally, Javi, pretend your brother. I have to take his kids. I better call you and say, will you take your nieces and nephews? Like I have to by law find family. To do whatever it takes to find family, because kids are better off with family or their parents.
We know that now. It's a scientific thing. So we're using data to understand that like these things make sense. It's kind of like what I brought up earlier when saying that like the most optimal way to raise kids is with the mother and the father in the home who are healthy. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean that if you're a woman who's married to a guy who's a piece of shit, or you're a guy who's married to a woman who's a piece of shit, that you should be in that relationship. What I'm saying is the most optimal way to raise children. We know this by data now for hundreds of years. Yep. That kids are healthily raised when they have a mother and a father in the household that are healthy to raise those kids. We know that.
Absolutely. We know that. Absolutely. And you're going to find that healthy parent, right?
Right.
Javi, you're a healthy dad. You're going to take your kid.
I don't know. I'm kind of fat. But I'm cute fat, though.
But you like
I mean?
the tortas, right? Is that what I hear on your...
No, I don't know about that. I mean, tortas are on. They're bomb. I mean, I don't only like tortas, you know what I mean? I like the cute ones, too. I'm just saying. No, I'm just kidding. But
we love Javi. Javi and his Instagram. I swear, those things keep me going every day. I think you keep the whole community going with your Instagram and now your podcast.
It's crazy.
But I want you all to know out there that we are really here to help you. Kids that are abused or neglected, or you're in a situation, even those parents that are on drugs.
Right.
It's not their, like, at the end of the day, we're not going to say, oh, you're just on drugs, whatever. We're going to say, what happened? I'm here. Get yourself in a program, get clean. This is what I tell the moms. I'm like I said, I'm still in the field. I'm still in a lot of family meetings. I'll tell them, girl, get your shit together, girl. Go to treatment. Do what it takes. Get healthy. Like, you have to have that hard talk with those parents. Right. And I'll even tell the dudes, like, I go, dude, get your shit together. And people look at me. And then I remember I was a training supervisor, and they're like, oh my God, Gato was cussing at the parents. But they would be like, oh, you're right, girl. Yeah. You know what, girl? I'm really trying. I'm really, really trying. I'm fucking up.
Like, they can relate to it pretty much.
Because I'm not going in there all prim and proper. Oh, like, I don't know who came to talk to you, but that was not me.
You're like, bitch, you better get your shit together.
Yeah, and they're looking at me and they're like, oh my God, we like your boss. And it's weird because even today as a boss, because I do go out a lot, I think if my staff is going to do good work, I need to be by their side too. So they know I'm probably one of the only supervisors in Ventura County. There's a few of us that like to go out because I need to keep it real.
You lead by example.
Yes. And if I'm going to be out there and they're like, God will come with me with the crisis, I'll be out there. I'm in the homes. Even when my staff is on vacation or on LOAs, I'm out there meeting the families because I love to talk to families. Like, I think everybody has a beautiful heart. And if I could just talk to them and get their story. People used to hate going with me too because I'm there for hours. I'm like,
she won't shut up.
Yeah, I won't shut up. This girl, here she comes, this Gato. She comes to my house and I'm talking and I'm sitting there and then they're giving me water and they're giving me, oh, you want to eat something? Okay, technically I probably shouldn't accept food, but you know what? I'll take some water. Okay, I'll have a taco here and there. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, they're humans. Like, we are people, despite of what your differences are, despite your struggles. Like, if I could be that person you can talk to and help guide you the proper way. And I told Javi, I'm always the neighborhood social worker. Yeah. Besides me in a professional setting, I get everybody in the community calling me. I help people on the side. I'm filling out paperwork. I'm like, they come over and I'm filling out family law paperwork because family law stuff that's a whole different court, but it's right. And I'm helping the community. And they said, I'm sorry, I heard, or can my friend call you because she's going through A, B, and C? Oh yeah, have her call me. They call me and they're confused about the system. And whoever wants to call me, you can get my number and I will talk to you. You can get it from Javi, but
yeah, we'll post this on Instagram and we'll tag you and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, and if there's ever anything out there, and I know we're really brushing up on, child abuse and neglect, and out there, there's a lot of other stuff we wanted to talk about, like parenting, right? We talked about the pandemic. I want you all to know there's a lot of stress going on, and I'm going to acknowledge all of you. And I don't want you to be scared because we all know that it's tough times and you're with your kids 24 hours, they're probably screaming and crying, getting on your nerves. And we're going to acknowledge that. We're going to know that things are tough, and we're going to know that there's going to probably be more drinking.
Oh, yeah.
More
moms drunk teaching their kids or having their kids on Zoom at 9:00 in the morning. You know what I mean?
Yes. There's like all these things going on. The sign of times, like, it's so crazy. You see all kinds of stress and increases stress in my parents. And I said, girl, I hear you, girl. I know you're stressed right now. Your kid is acting up. You're trying to do your telework job. And then you have your kids, even like we have Zoom meetings and there's supervisors with their kids in the background. Yeah. And these are professionals, right? I want y'all to know, professionals. And they're like, oh my God, like, be quiet, sit down. And you're like, we are all human. We all are trying to figure out the pandemic.
For the record, I'm recording this podcast and I got gym shorts on under this shirt, just FYI. Carol didn't even notice when she walked in. I got gym shorts on.
We're ready to go do some jumping jacks.
I'm living that Rona life, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's what I do. Like I'm on Zoom meetings. I have I have my little like workout pants, and then I'll put a coat over.
Yeah. Oh,
like
man.
I'm all like in a Zoom meeting with a coat on.
That's that Rona life, you know.
That's the Rona life. But people look like shit. I don't try to look like shit though. You'll see me with eyelashes on and hair done and eyeshadow. Yeah, like everybody. And I'm in the video, like the Zoom meetings, moving my hair, going like this. And then I have my friends text me, "Girl, you're like messing with your hair." I'm like, "Oh," so I'm trying to be all over.
Yeah, my bad.
Let me just sit here. But no, I want y'all to know that like right now is a time that is so stressful. I even think for couples, right?
Oh my God. I would assume domestic abuse is like, or domestic violence is up like
that's crazy
wildly, because just imagine. So, people are always like, how are you single people doing? I'm like, man, how are you doing? You've been married to the same fool you don't even like for 10 years and you're just stuck with them now for the last year in the same household. That fool walking on his boxers every day for fucking 23 hours a day. Like, I don't know how you're doing, but I'm doing great. I don't have any of that.
You don't have to worry about, couples right now. I want you to know that it is very difficult time for couples, especially those that like lose, you're stressed that my husband lost their job. Let's say, now the mom has to take the responsibility to make sure there's food on the table.
Right.
And people are really, there's government assistance out there. There's help, but
it ain't enough.
It's not enough. It's not, especially in California.
Even in Kentucky in the fucking bumfuck woods, it ain't enough. What the government has done for us in these times is not nearly enough.
It's not enough. It's not enough to survive. So I don't know why people think that that the government.
You can rely on the government. Don't rely on the government. You got to figure it out, man.
You can't. So. Yeah, there is an increase of family drama and violence. Kids are acting up, really bad kids. I mean, I love kids, but I go to the houses or I hear them in the background. I was like, oh, dear Lord. And, parents are kind of like, they forget the parenting. The parenting goes down the drain because they're overwhelmed, right? So, okay, kids are running around here, have a candy and shut up. Is that the real way? No, it really isn't.
Yeah.
You got to talk to your kids and put structure and discipline. That's going out the wayside right now. I'm seeing that.
Put the YouTubes down, put all the shit down and start talking.
Yeah,
again, talk to your fucking kids.
Yes, parents, you guys, I see it and we do it even with our partners. When we did, well, now that things are opening, but if you go out, you see everyone on their phones. And I've been a victim to that. I know I'm on my phone and I'm like, and it's like, I try to put it like, now I'm really trying to be cognizant of that. But I don't, my kid's 19 now, but when you have little ones and they're trying, mommy, and I've seen it. And even my own friends do it. They're like, and ignoring them.
Yeah.
And I'll like, just talk to your kid.
Talk to your kid.
Pay attention.
I've been saying this for years. Talk to your fucking kids. I remember even when my son was young, his favorite movie was Nemo. Mm-hmm. Finding Nemo. I swear to God, I watched that.
My kid.
I watched that fucking movie no less than, without exaggeration, 700 times. And I kid you not. Maybe more than that.
You probably memorized the whole thing.
So everything from the fucking Don't Touch the Boat. That fucking
Dory.
entire movie. Yeah. That fucking entire movie. Like, so I remember thinking early on when I was watching that with him, but that was like, we didn't have really like video on our phones yet. So we'd be like in a room watching TV or whatever. But today, like I go to a restaurant and I see like, well, when I used to be able to go to a restaurant, I guess they're open again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a Monday.
Awesome. We need to go to dinner and have some drinks, Otto.
I went. Yes,
some of your friends.
Yesterday, I went to Cronies in Camarillo.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it open?
It's open.
Oh, I need to go to Cronies. I need a schooner.
I had a pink nasty.
Ooh, I don't know what that is, but it sounds good. I like pink nasties too. Give me a pink nasty
and I had
any day.
Who knows about those? Those wings at Cronies. Oh my God, that's why I always
Is the pink nasty a drink?
Yeah, it's like vodka and like lemon. Pink
I thought they didn't have alcohol there. I thought it was only beer.
That's kind of it's Tito's, I believe, with the Mike's Hard Lemonade.
Ooh, I like a pink nasty. Make it nasty.
You can make it here. Make that. Put that here at your bar.
But so anyways, so you know, and I look today at parents today, and I used to judge myself back then. But I look at parents today, and they literally raise their kids. Like I've seen friends
give their iPads and here's your phone.
And the kids are watching crazy shit. And one time I had a friend who was doing that. I said, bro, do you see what your daughter's watching? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, dude, you popped her up on some shit about like some Barbie dress fucking playhouse or whatever. And like 30 videos in, it's like some weird fucking Barbie getting slaughtered and murdered by some weird shit. Like, you got to pay attention to that stuff, man. You can't, it's not autopilot. Being a parent doesn't mean you get to go to autopilot.
And don't use the iPad and your phone as a babysitter. That's the thing that bothers me the most. And you know, again, I only have one son. He's 19 today. And I chose to not have any more kids after that. Yeah. And so, because raising a kid is a lot of work, and I wanted to give my son the undivided attention he deserved. I knew I probably couldn't do it with more, especially with my career. But I see people just giving their cell phone to their little kids that are like 2 and 3 years old. Right. Those kids are already learning how to like play video games or watch YouTube. And to me, I'm like, that's not the babysitter that you should have, because they want to keep them quiet, right? Right. They're going to keep them quiet. Here's my phone. I want to hang out with the girls. Here you go. Here, my phone.
That's exactly what it is. It's a lazy way. It's a lazy approach to parenting.
Don't do that, please.
Yes.
Don't. And I mean, I know that my son loved video games. And part of me was like, okay, well, he likes video games and he's home and safe. And I don't have to, like, my career is so crazy that I couldn't put him in a lot of sports.
Right.
I wouldn't be that mom that could be the sports mom, because I was just so crazy in my career. And I was actually kind of glad that he didn't really like sports. He was more of a school kid, loved studying,
like my kid, yeah.
Loved video games, that he's home. But there came a time where I had to say, hey, come out of your room. Let's hang out.
Right.
No more video games. Like, you got to put rules and limits. And I think we don't understand is you have to put consequences. You have to get, you know, my kid was never the kid. And let me tell you, I raised my kid because I was lucky with my experience, and I knew what I wanted to do as a parent and what I didn't want to do.
Right.
And one of the things with my son, and I hope you all listen to this, is that there's a lot of parents who go to Target, right? The kid wants a candy or the kid wants a freaking toy.
Right. And
I was that mom, nope. Until you give me good grades, especially if it's good in grade school.
Right.
He would not get anything. Poor kid. He was, and my tias and my mom, hi, que mala, whatever. You're such a mean mom. No, he'll get whatever toys he wants until he brings me an A and B. And then when he brings me an A and B at report card time, and when the progress report came and he had good grades, I would give him a little treat.
Right.
But he wouldn't get the big.
In other words, don't spoil your fucking kids. Make them earn shit.
Guys,
make them earn shit.
You have to let kids earn they have to earn shit. Don't give it to them.
You know what's more important than that? That we're not, well, not more important than that, but what's as equally, maybe a little bit more important than that, that we're not letting kids do today, is we are not letting kids fail.
Nope.
So when kids fail, it's okay for them to cry. It's okay for them to kick and scream. That's how they learn to lose. Our kids today have been so spoiled that we forget that, like, we were taught to lose. I was taught to lose in a grand way. Me and Robert talked about that in our podcast. So we're like, hey, dude, like, one thing we have in common that all the guys that we grew up with, who were good guys that grew up with, like, was football. Like, I fucking sucked at football. I had 3 left feet. I was fat and fucking short. You know what I mean? Like, I sucked.
I thought you were a good football
player.
No, I
sucked at fucking football. But here's the deal. Even though I sucked at football, I never gave up. And it taught me to lose. It basically taught me how to suck. He's going to get you all slobbery. Yo, man. Muggs, get off of her.
Muggs, why are you slobbery?
He wants to go outside. Hey, no, don't let him kiss you. Hey, off. He'll get you all slobbery. So, long story short is, like, it's okay to, it's okay. He needs to go pee is what it is. He drink all that water. I'll let him out right now. Just don't pee him out in my studio, bro. So, long story short is, it's okay to let your kids fucking suffer a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's actually imperative to them becoming good adults. If you don't let your kids, especially sons, suffer and know what it's like to lose, they grow up to be pieces of shit who shoot up schools and do all kinds of crazy shit. Let your sons know what it's like to suffer and lose. It's important, man. We forgot about that. I even think bullying, to a certain extent, this is going to be something that's going to be really weird and out there. But I was bullied hardcore. When I was young, I was bullied a lot. All the way. Yeah, I was bullied quite a bit. But here's the thing. Being bullied taught me, in a sense, societal-wise, like what was not cool, what I needed to fix, like in a sense. Now, it really fucking sucked. It was horrible for me, I'll be honest. But a little bit about that taught me things like societal things that should have been norms that I should have fallen in line with. You know what I mean? I was bullied in football, for instance. You know, but football was tough for me. It was not easy. Fucking crazy.
Did you start playing like YFL and all
Yeah, YFL all the way through high school. And so, well, through most of high school. I fell in love with the girls after like 11th grade. So
I remember you. I do remember you football now thinking.
Yeah. So, but you know, but it was tough, and it taught me how to be humble. It taught me that, hey, asshole, you're not a fucking god. You're not this. You're not that. You're not anything. What you are is one spoke in this entire hub. And that spoke ain't even a strong one, fool. It's bending, you know what I mean? Like, so what I'm saying is that it's imperative and important, especially for young men. This is so critical in today's times because I think we're really forgetting about young men. We really are. Right now in today's times, it's super. And by the way, I'm super happy for women. By the way, I am.
Oh
like,
yes,
I'm
and
excited,
honestly,
you
I
know
know I don't want to get into politics, but for me to have a vice president as a woman, I am freaking ecstatic. And
even if her history sucks,
no, don't start.
She still made it there, right?
You know, we'll go in that debate later. But to have a woman in power,
right, and
her history, you got to look at the history deep. And I'm going to say this is, remember I told you that we work in laws and regulations, and I want you all to know that I have a strong. My heart is there for this woman because guess what? She tried child abuse cases in San Francisco for about 10 years. So she put those child abusers behind bars. And she fought till the end. I know they say, oh, she put black men for...
She did. That's true, though.
But she was working within the realm of her job, like I do. I had to work to protect children, right? Mm-hmm. And look at it this way. I had to work around laws and regulations. And I had to do the best of what I can do. That's what she did. But she tried.
I don't know, Caro. I think you're not giving yourself enough. I don't think you're enough. I think you're not giving yourself enough credit. I think if you were tasked with what she had to do at the time where she was incarcerating a lot of people, I think you would ask questions. But I think the difference is that she had a political path. But we have to look at the simultaneous. No, the difference is she had a political path, a powerful political path, where she had to toe political lines.
But she was a DA, though. The DA, like, if you think... and
the most powerful attorney in that fucking situation.
And as a DA, you're trained to win a case. And
Exactly. You just said it. So we can go on and on.
Yeah. We could go to politics, but we're trained to win a case, right?
You should always want to win no matter how good or bad it is.
Yes, absolutely. So exactly do you get mad at them for trying to do what they're trained to do? And that's why you kind of look at social workers.
I do. You want to know why? Because she's the vice president of the United States of America now. And at one point she was influenced by power and politics versus thinking on her own. So, but again, I'm happy for women though. I'm happy for women today because that is something that women can look up to, aspire to. But
there was a time that women weren't given those position of power, even in the education. Let me tell you how I was raised. When my dad raised a daughter, he was in the Chicano movement. I told you that. I was never I was baptized in the Catholic Church, but guess what? He said, look, I don't want my daughter. The Catholic Church, the church oppresses women. Yeah. They need to be tending to their man and whatever chingaderas it says, the Bible. Right. He said, fuck that. I don't want that for my daughter. I want my daughter to be able to not be oppressed. I want her to get an education. I don't want any man. And he always told me, and I'm going to laugh. This is Dad. I'm always going to remember, and everybody knows this. My dad would say, every man is a walking dick.
He wasn't lying.
They're walking dicks. The only man you're going to depend on is your dad.
That's also kind of creepy though, right?
No, I mean walking.
Not creepy, but
well, because he didn't want me to. He wanted me to be.
He said this when. Okay, he said this when you were younger, though, like a little.
No. When I was in college.
Really?
Yeah, like they're walking dicks. Men are a bunch of assholes.
No, he wasn't lying about that. But I'm saying, the only man in your life that matters would be him. That's
no, depending on like. I
that
shouldn't. I shouldn't depend on my husband.
Gotcha.
To do certain things.
Because your dad will always be there for you.
Yeah.
Or it's like saying your parents will always be there for you. Your mom.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Totally.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute.
No.
I got it. I totally got it.
No, he would, but no, he taught me to do it for myself.
Right.
And if I couldn't do it for myself, like last night I called him, Dad, something's wrong with my shower. My husband, he's not very like,
he's not
handy.
Handyman.
No, but I saw my shower wasn't working. Well, Dad, I called my dad. He's okay. Look at it. And so I text him, and then later I text him. I figured it out. I know what's wrong with it. I fixed it.
Because he taught you how to do it.
He taught me how to do it. So that's his thing: is don't depend on anybody.
That's awesome.
And
that I absolutely love.
Yeah, you're gonna figure it out on your own. And the worst case scenario, you have your father. Right. But now
you don't. He's not gonna be here forever.
I know.
Your husband better catch up and figure out how to fix the faucet.
And so luckily he's teaching my son.
Good.
And my son's father's taught him how to be a handyman. So my son is very handy. So I'm very lucky for that. But I think one of the things is growing up as a woman. We were. You have that idea, especially with our culture.
Uh-huh.
You have to be a housewife and you have to do all these things.
Oh, yeah. Times have changed.
So I think really growing up, and that's why I pursued an education. And I even went to grad school when my son was 3 years old.
That's awesome. Ladies, you hear that? She had a 3-year-old and she was going through fucking grad school. Mm-hmm. So what's your excuse?
Yep. I'm telling you, all you ladies out there, I went to grad school. I was in this career already in this field. I would go 3 times a week to school every night working. I would commute from Santa Barbara to Oxnard. That's when I moved to this county.
Right.
Go home, put my kid was, luckily I had my mom. So my kid would be already bathed and ate, put him to bed, get here from school, 9 o'clock I would be home by. Actually, I got lucky. I lied. He was with his dad. His dad took so much responsibility when I was at grad school. It was perfect. And so I would come from Santa Barbara, commute, get out of class at 9:30 at night, get here by 10:45. No, 10, well, about whatever. 40 minutes later, I would study until 2 a.m., wake up again at 6 a.m., and commute back to Santa Barbara to go to work. Did that for 2 years. Until I got my master's
degree.
Mm-hmm.
So, I really, really, really value and champion women like you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was talking about when I brought up earlier about how I was apologizing about how I was like, stop complaining and get the fuck out of that relationship and move on kind of scenario. It's because I was raised by women that were like, fuck this, I'm moving on. Mm-hmm, or I'm strong, or I'm bad.
Your mom's so strong.
Yeah,
I mean, I love your mom. She's honorable woman.
Yeah. And if you look at her mom and my great grandmother and you look at my grandmothers across the board. Yeah, my son's going to come right now and take him out. When you look at who I was raised by, it's by some really tough, strong ass women. You know what I mean?
You're lucky.
Yeah, very lucky. So I find very little kind of excuses to be okay. Throw them out. Outside. Thank you. Quick. Outside. Thank you. Sorry. Muggs had to go to the bathroom.
Muggs is crying over
here. Muggs is crying over here. Go to the bathroom. So what I'm getting at is that it's sometimes I'm insensitive about it, but it's only because I was raised by the fucking strongest and the baddest of the baddest.
Yeah, your mom's freaking awesome. Yeah.
So I don't understand the weak side of it. You know what I mean? I just don't get it, and it's hard for me to digest it. But talking to you today gave me a different perspective on the domestic violence side of it and the abusive side of it in a relationship, which is something, again, I'm totally okay with saying I was wrong about that. Mm-hmm. And I think more people in this world should be able to say, hey, I had a view on something and I was wrong about that. For instance, the way I look at this today when I was 20 is way different than I look at it now at my age. You know what I mean? It's okay to evolve and grow as a human, and your ideas and your mentality around certain subjects change. For example, and just off a tangent here, but it's a funny story. When I became a father, so the moment my son was born, I was there for it, right? And I watched him be born, and I put him in my hands as soon as he came out of the womb, and there's a picture literally of us looking at each other, and they put jelly in his eyes, and
you're making me cry.
I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and I looked sickly because it was like I was just like shocked. My entire body was shocked, you know, and we're looking at each other. But I remember that moment, that exact moment that picture was taken. I remember like it was yesterday. He's going to be 18 in April. I remember I grew this weakness in my body. And I call it a weakness because I went from being this savage animal piece of shit who didn't care about anything. You know what I mean? I'll punch a fucking guy 5 times. I was an animal.
I remember I was like, Javi's, because I'm a little bit older than Javi, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
A little bit older than him. And I remember him like, oh my God, this little punk.
Yeah, I was a fucking animal. You know what I mean?
I remember. I totally remember. But like when I hear you talking now, and even like through all the last few years, I'm like, wow. You know, you are an honorable dad, and I mean, keep going with your story. I'm going on a tangent myself.
So I remember this weakness overcame me the moment I looked at him and he looked at me, and I remember that moment. It's crazy because it was captured on film, and I have that picture. And I just grew this weakness within me that was, and I tell people like I grew a vagina,
and that's okay.
I became fucking soft immediately because the day before that, and this is the way I can describe it, if I was like a family party and there was this kid running across, you know, the party and fell and busted his head on the concrete, I'd be like, hey, whose kid is that? Pick up that fucking kid. Like, whose fucking kid is that? Someone get that fucking kid, you know?
Yeah.
But immediately after he's placed in my arms, I immediately grew like a vagina where like if that happened and it had happened after like something like that scenario like that had happened, I'm like, oh my God, whose kid is that? I would go pick up that kid and my butthole would pucker and I'd be like all soft and like concerned about kids. Like I didn't give a shit about kids before that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I was mean or grotesque or whatever, but there's a different level of human that comes out of you when you have kids, you know?
And I think that like for me, I know I have a very strong bond with my dad and my mom. We know now she had postpartum depression.
Oh, that's tough.
So this was in the 70s, you guys, like, you know, 1974.
They just said, bitch, are you crazy? They didn't care about it. Like today, at least we know what it is.
And my dad was always in the mental health field. He already graduated from UCSB. He got a full ride scholarship, by the way, to UCSB.
Nice.
Full ride. So he says he recalls when I was born that my mom struggled with me, that she could, because when you said it, when you held your baby, you had that instantaneously, there was that instant bond, right? You felt, you melted. This is my baby. My mom, that didn't happen with her.
Yeah, and that happens to a lot of women, and we don't talk about it often, you know.
It's the postpartum depression. And my dad, he said that when I was born, same exactly what you said, melted. Like he thought I was the most beautiful baby on the world. And oh my God, his whole life changed. He was 24 years old.
I was 23.
Yeah, 24 years old.
I could be your daddy, Caro.
He could be my daddy? Okay, he could be my daddy.
Nah, I'm just kidding. Same scenario though, but it's very, very, very similar scenario.
Isn't it crazy? Like he said, the moment you were born, my whole life changed. I was a little punk from the barrio of Santa Barbara. You know, he had to figure life out. I don't know if you know this. My abuelita was the main cook for 25 years at Rose Cafe.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. And they just closed that down too.
Are they shutting it down?
Because of COVID. They couldn't keep open. So my dad.
For these that don't know, that's like a staple of Santa Barbara community for fucking decades now. Are they closing Rose Cafe down?
Yes.
Oh, that hurts my soul.
Yeah.
Fuck you, COVID.
Fucking COVID. Like that's a family. My dad was raised in my grandma would go to work and threw him in the closet.
Damn.
Because she didn't have a babysitter.
Right.
She's the first. He has 5 siblings after him, but when she was there for 25 years. So he says when I was born, like he was in heaven. He said, I saw you. You were the most beautiful baby, the happiest day of my life when you were born. Right. And he'll say that today. When you were born, I have a brother, but it's a little bit different.
You were the firstborn.
I was the firstborn, right? And my mom struggled. Like, so and he tells me later, and my mom has talked to me because I never had that bond growing up with my mom. But she said that my dad was like enamored to have a daughter. There's nothing like a father-daughter bond. It's a little bit different, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And a mother-son bond.
Yep.
So my mom struggled, and he said that he would cry to my mom, you got to hold her. He said, I wasn't in the field of psychology. I mean, I was studying it, but I knew that you had to bond and attach with your child. You need to hold them. You know, the Mexican way, the jalo para que se lloren right there. Van a ser chiquiados, let them cry, because we didn't want them to get spoiled, right? You let babies cry. No, absolutely not. My dad knew that wasn't okay. You don't let your baby cry. Your babies are crying because there's a need that needs to be met.
Right.
You got to hold them and love them. So my mom couldn't do that to me. My mom could not do that. And to this day, it was my dad. My dad did all that attention. So that's why when I see those fathers like you, Javi, I'm like, wow, because I have the best dad who was able to give me that affection that my mom couldn't, because she was suffering from a mental health condition. And nobody knew at the time, right?
What it was, yeah.
And there's a lot of women out there, it's coming out, like, don't feel bad if you have those where you don't have that drive to hold your baby. There's help out there, right? There's help. But back then there wasn't. Right. And he said, Rosa, hold your daughter. And he said, Mija, I knew just from my studies in psychology, he's a psychologist, I knew that you needed to hold and have that bonding and attachment. That's why when you give birth, they put the baby on you immediately because the bond and attachment. That's why when women give birth, they want you to breastfeed. Yep, that's the bond and attachment. I told you about the booty calls, why women can't have booty calls, right?
Anyone out there, I'll suck your boobies for free. I'm just saying. And I hear breast milk is curing COVID or helping you not get COVID.
Yes, it is.
For research purposes, I'll latch on, just letting you know.
Yeah, let's study that research. Seriously, cheers to that one.
Cheers to that. Cheers to booby research purposes.
Seriously. So honestly, like to have a father that kind of knew what it took to raise a daughter, and he was very educated, right? So he knew that those bondings and attachment was important. So he told me, like, you know, your mom, one day he came home and he said, my mom had me upside down because I was a very sick child. Not to mention I was very sick. Right. Always throwing up, always something with my stomach, mocosa, allergies, asthma. So you might probably hear me with like kind of wheezing.
I'm the same way.
So
I'd be like, clearing my throat all the time.
Yeah. So I'm hoping you can edit that part because I do.
It's okay.
I do have a little bit of asthma and wheezing, so you might hear that every now and then. But my mom was like stuffing food down my throat. She had me upside down. Oh. He comes home from one of his 5 jobs. He graduated from UCSB, and then he was like working at mental health. He was already there, but as a case manager, but he still had side jobs. And he worked at the thrift store.
Oh, La Segunda.
La Segunda. He worked there. And then I always had like clothes and toys from the Segunda, right? And he said he came home for a break and he saw my mom she had me upside down crying and she's stuffing food down my throat because I wouldn't eat, you know? And she's like, crying, like all hysterical. My dad grabbed me and was like, what the fuck? That's our baby. You're going to kill her. And so then if you look at my baby books, it's just me and my dad. Yeah. And then later when my son was born, my mom said, look, she gave my son so much attention, like things that she never did for me. So my mom and I were like best.
But there's a dynamic there, though. There's a dynamic we don't talk about, and you brought it up earlier, is little boys need their mom and little girls need their dad.
Yep.
And that's the yin and the yang. And I'm so tired of, I'm going to say this as nicely as I can, ladies. Women saying they can do it alone. I can do it alone. I can do it alone. Of course you can. It's fucking 2021. Of course you can pay bills. I don't give you credit for paying bills. But when it comes to raising kids, there really is a yin and a yang. So
they need their parents.
They need their parents.
Both.
But they need both for different reasons. Like for me, my son missed out a lot on being a little boy who needed a mother. Thank God when I got full custody of him, he was already 10, turning into a young man, which is the phase of a young boy's life where they need a father to kick them in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had gotten custody of my son between the ages of born till say 10, it would have been very difficult to raise that young man without a motherly love in his life, giving him that. There's different ages. There's books. I have books behind me. I can fucking pull 5 right now. You think I'm fucking kidding?
Let's see. Let's see your books, Javi.
There's a bunch over here. Where are they at? I'll have to find them. Here we go. Youth and Mental Health. First Aid USA. I got a whole bunch of books over here about how to raise young men and youth and mental health and stuff. But the reality is, little boys need their mothers from born to about 8, 9 years old.
Because of the bonding and attachment. But they need their dads.
But they also need the loving and caring to say it's okay to teach them how to be caring individuals, right? And then after 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, they need a male figure in their life to kick them in the ass and teach them what it's like to be a man.
Absolutely. Let me tell you, with my boy, I was a single mom. And his father was, the first few years, it was a struggle. But as soon as my son turned like 2, 2.5, he's like, I want my son. Yep. And I didn't fight it because I knew what you're saying. He needs a dad. He needs a dad. I had a great dad. He needs both. So I never took it to court. I never argued. Go with your dad. And to this day, I want to say, because there was there was hiccups along the way.
Sure.
Some drama along the way, but I never kept my son away from his dad because I knew he needed that. So my son was able to get exposed to it. His dad was tough. One time he came home. Okay, so I'm a CPS mom. He calls me. This is where I'll never forget. He calls me. Maybe you can relate to this. You know my baby's dad.
Yes, I do.
It was like he was about 10 or 11. He calls me crying. I'm already CPS mom, right? Never hit my kid, whatever. He had a whoop mark on his leg. And, he was acting up. His dad whooped him. I was like, oh, hell no. He's a CPS kid. You can never hit your kid, whatever. And by the way, you can hit your children, like spanking. We were going to talk about the laws.
Yeah, we'll get to that. It's coming up.
Yeah. So I remember he called me. He sends me a picture of his leg with the whoop mark because his dad hit him. Because I don't remember what he did, but he did something bad. His dad hit him. Right. And he's deathly afraid of his dad. But that's what little boys need, though. They need a healthy. Absolutely. Let me tell you, it's not a fear, but a respect of their father to say that, hey, if you get out of line, I'm going to put you in your fucking place. Absolutely. We should let's get our sons out here one day for a podcast. My son would probably be totally. My son would be on the podcast before we could totally do it because they absolutely need the. It's not so much fear, but the respect of, hey, if I get out of line. I'm not afraid of my mom, but my dad will fuck me up. So here, I'm going to be cool. And you know what? I'm going to say my son turned 19 today, and I look at him every day, and I'm like, wow, what the fuck? What a good kid. Yeah. And he tells me, because his dad whooped, and I remember going over there like, oh my God, I'm going to get investigated. He's a CPS kid, and his fucking dad whipped him. He had a little mark, and he didn't whip him. He spanked him. No, there was some marks right there. Was it? Okay. There was a little mark, but I'm probably a little dramatic because it's your kid. And you're being, yeah. And so his dad whooped him. But then after, I was like, I'm going to use this to my advantage because he was so scared of his dad. I'm going to call your dad. I'm going to call your dad. He'll be like, oh, okay, don't call my dad. That's all a mom needs to say. Yeah. I'm gonna call your dad. And then like even now I'm glad because he needs to be a productive man in society. Right. So I am so glad that I can tell even now if he my kid's he's 19, he likes to party a little. Right. And he goes, on Christmas he goes over to the West Side. And his cousin Angel wants to take him to go to a party. And his dad was like, you're not fucking, okay, you're going to go. But it's different over here. You're a Camarillo kid. Yeah. You're a little Catholic school kid. Whatever. Private school kid. This is the West Side, fool. Yeah. That's what he said. He's like, and so my son comes to me the next day. He's like, my dad was waiting for me outside. Because his dad's been there. We partied together. And he said, mijo, this is the life skills that I am so grateful for because my son, he's in Camarillo. He's a big coconut. is hanging out with white kids with money.
Right.
Spanish Hill kids, they all have all this money, right? And his dad told him, yeah, it's fun and games over there, yeah, but you got to be careful out there on the streets. This is different,
right?
You know, and not to say that Santa Barbara, it's not as bad as
they just had a bunch of murders over there. What are you talking about?
I know it's getting bad.
Santa Barbara's different.
It's getting a little different. Yeah, when we grew up, it was not like that.
People were getting jumped, stabbed, a murder every now and then.
But now it's getting bad.
It's crazy now, yeah.
So his dad, and this is where I tell you about life skills, and that's why Javi, that's why having a father involved and you ladies out there, when you guys try to fight for control because, oh, he doesn't want to be with me, or, oh, he's an asshole, let him be a dad.
Yeah. Let him be a fucking dad. And the same thing for fathers. Let their mother, if they want to be there. In my situation, the mother of my child, she gave up because it was a lot she was going to have to do to be part of his life. She gave up and moved on, unfortunately.
But you were going to be willing to foster that relationship.
I absolutely tried to foster it multiple times to the point of, where I would have her at my house for her to give like Christmas gifts and whatever else. And I never, ever stopped that relationship from happening. I never, ever, in her opinion, that might be different, but that's because the court system basically told her, hey, you got to do X, Y, and Z. And she just gave up. You know what I mean? So, and
that's sad at the end of the day. But
it is what it is. But
it is what it is because you have been there 100% since this all happened 8 years ago.
And I was able to remove him from a abusive situation. And I think the most important thing that we touched on earlier is it's one of the most heartbreaking things in my life is to break generational trauma is the most important thing. And today that's the thing we talk about a lot. And a lot of people, I'm not talking about because you didn't get your fucking Starbucks on the way to school. I'm talking about witnessing true physical violence, abuse, neglect, that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about simple things. A lot of people get that twisted with like, oh, well, I didn't get to fucking have my mommy didn't buy me my first car when I turned 16. No, fucking bitch. That's not generational trauma.
No.
Like I'm talking about somebody getting really hurt, abuse, that kind of stuff. And so for me, the moment I got custody of my son, my entire vision and purpose in my life became my mission was to become somebody who was going to try to break that. However, fully knowing that the reason why I got custody is because of generational trauma being continued. And that was really tough for me to digest. And that was one thing that I was really, really, this is very personal. I probably shouldn't be sharing the podcast, but I was really, really, really angry and upset about for a long time. To the point of being concerned that I would do something about it. Yeah, I was fucking upset. You know what I mean? If there was anything I was upset about, it wasn't my son being witness to horrible things. It wasn't the child abuse that went on in that scenario. It was the fact that you now brought generational trauma that I was doing my absolute best to keep out of my fucking son's life into his life. And I was really upset. I was in a dark place. And that's why, again, I'll say it, when I called my mom, when I got the paperwork and I read that, I will never forget that. And I had a friend with me, Evelyn, who was with me at that moment. And I walked into my garage and I sat down and I fucking cried like a baby. And I was angry. The tears were heartache, but they were anger. Anger like I've never felt in my life. And I'll never probably feel that again. I was fucking angry. And I just could not understand and comprehend.
And I remember those calls you would make to me. Obviously, you knew where I was in the field and you called me a few times. And I remember I
said, I need help.
Yeah. I remember walking you through those things and I would be out there crying with you, but I was like, you can do this, whatever, obviously I didn't have hands on that case, but, I remember you calling me, Javi. I remember you calling me those days. And I have that vision. I remember you calling me and I just got out of my car and I was in the parking lot at work and you're telling me why, asking me, why is your agency doing, why is this happening to me? Why did this happen to my son? Why? And I remember just like talking you through that. And then I want to say, I've been like stalking you since 8 years ago.
Shit.
And you know what, Javi, you have every year for 8 years told me Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And you always text me, hey, Gato, Happy Mother's Day, or Facebook, whatever it may be. But I knew that the moment that this happened, the day that you and I connected again, you know, we were older, right? We knew each other when we were kids. I knew you were going to be that dad, and you raised such a beautiful young man. And honestly, like
it takes a village, man. I had help.
You did, but mom, for someone to take, again, we don't think dads that way. And then I know that you bring that up a lot. There's not a lot of dads who take that responsibility, but I remember I totally remember the day and all those conversations we've had throughout. And that's why when you started doing these podcasts, I reached out to you. I was like, I want to do something with you, because I think you and I, we've it's been 8 years in the making. Yeah. And I know you when you were a kid. I know you were a little punk for a little while. I'm a little bit older than
I was an animal. I don't know if I was a punk, but I was an animal.
Yeah,
I was a mujeriego, and I was a bunch of shit.
He was so cute, all handsome out there with all the girls. Man. Yes.
I'm fat, no, but I used to be something when I was young, I guess.
Yeah, you still are, Javi. You're a nice guy, and to see the progression and this beautiful son you raised. Yeah. And you took responsibility. The moment that you and I talked, you called me on that day. Yeah. You called me, and we walked through this together. And I'm always going to be here for you, and always going to be rooting for you, and always look at your kid and be like, wow, you know, because for a dad to be so involved and to be a single parent, you know, because historically there's not a lot of single dads, and you bring that up a lot.
I don't take credit for that though.
Why?
Because I'm just doing what a dad's supposed to do.
That's true.
So
absolutely, I love that statement.
I don't get a golden star for doing what the fuck I'm supposed to do.
Because that's your job.
And it's actually my job. It was what I accepted the minute I became a father. And so to me,
absolutely, that's something my dad would say.
Yeah, the way I look at it is that if you and I were a couple, we had a kid together, right? And 10 years down the road, you got hit by a car and died. I'm going to take care of my kid because that's what the fuck I'm supposed to be doing.
That's your job.
That's my fucking job. So to me, I actually get very conflicted when I get that, because I'll be honest, on Instagram, like, there's a lot of girls, oh my God, you're so sexy, you're a good dad, and blah, blah. I'm like, that's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's why you're giving me praise, because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yes. And the same thing when women are like, I'm an independent mom, and I'm like, bitch, that's what you're supposed to be doing. You don't get a golden star for paying bills and feeding your kids. Bitch, that's what you're supposed to be doing.
That's what you're here for. You brought a kid, you got to do it.
And guess what, asshole? You single dad, that's what the fuck you're supposed to be doing. Like, that's what you're supposed to do.
I want to say, but I guess, you know, historically, it's not common in fathers.
It's becoming more common, though.
Yeah, yes, now
it is. Let me tell you something.
Oh, my God.
Many men that we know are fathers, are full-time fathers in your generation and mine. So, Caro, you're probably like, what? I'm guessing like 3 or 4 years older than me.
I'm 3 years older.
3 years old. Okay, so my brother's 5 years older than me. And his age group down to yours, friends that you and I grew up with, there's 5 of them I grew up with. Homies.
They're all fathers.
My big homies are all single fathers, and their moms are all fucking. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, and here's the thing: when I went to court, the moment I went to, because
juvenile or family law,
it ended up in juvenile because of the situation, because there was criminal stuff involved. So when I ended up in juvenile court, that judge was the first judge that vindicated, because I had been fighting for fucking years to get custody of my son. I literally went to you hire an attorney. I spent probably like $30,000-$40,000 in attorney fees for years to get custody of my kid, pleading to the courts that something bad is going to happen. I need custody of my fucking son. You don't understand. I was screaming to the fucking highest.
That's not my court, by the way.
Yeah, no, not your court. No, it's a different court. It's a family court. Highest fucking mountains ever. This is way before any of that should happen. Highest courts of the fucking land of the law here. And I remember the judge, because I ended up in like a jury trial. Like, I had to be on the stand and like talking and being like cross-examined by lawyers and stuff. And it was fucking crazy. And I was like, I'm just trying to, you don't understand, judge. You don't understand. The judge looked at me and said, if you come back here, you bring us back to court again, it's going to look bad against you. And I was like,
why?
Because every time, I'm not going to get too deep into it, because I don't want to get too negative on the other side, because I pride myself in being the father that got custody of my son, raised my son, had always wanted to raise my son in a healthy manner. And that's all I focused on. I don't want to focus on the negative. Yeah. But the judge was like, you've been back to court here too many times. You come back again, it's going to be negative on your aspect and blah, blah, blah. So the moment, it was disgusting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember
Absolutely.
feeling completely defeated, saying, "What the fuck has happened? Does my son have to go through some shit where he gets really harmed before you fucking listen?" That's what I was feeling. I was so fucking angry. I was so pissed. I think that was probably the second most angry I'd have been before I had read that paperwork and called my mom. Like, I remember that was probably, I was so fucking angry. And I remember thinking at that point, just being, that was the first point in my life as a man where I was like, I just got to accept some shit. As a man, I can't change this. I can't just go punch somebody in the mouth and fucking change this. You know, I can't just beat the fuck out of somebody and change this. The court system doesn't give a shit. And I was so angry. But when I went to child court, juvenile court rather.
Do you remember, was it Judge Cody?
I don't remember, to be honest. It's in my paperwork. I can pull it up. Mm-hmm. By the way, I have all that paperwork.
Is it a lady or a man?
If anyone wants to talk shit, I'll pull out receipts. That's all I'm saying.
Is it a lady or a man?
It was a dude.
Oh, that was...
It was a dude. So when I was there, at the very end of everything, because, yeah, the first case I was given custody, and I had to come back to solidify what was going to happen. And at the second proceeding of it, court, I don't know what you would call it, interaction or whatever, a case or whatever, we had to go back to court date. My baby's mom didn't even show up because she had already knew it was done. You know, she didn't even show up for it at all.
She didn't show up to court?
No, not for the second piece. And so the judge was like, "Hey, I'm reading your file here, and I'm reading your family law file too." And he's like, "And I understand that you've been coming to court for a long time trying to stop whatever happened from happening." And he told me one thing which was crazy. He's like, in today's times, he goes out. He didn't apologize to me, but he was kind of apologizing to me without having to apologize, because judges are never going to apologize to you, you know. But he's like, I will tell you this: in today's times, we're seeing a lot more young men becoming single fathers than we've ever seen before, and I commend you for taking all this responsibility. And I was like vindicated, like, fuck, dude, I've been saying this for fucking years. Like, yeah, I've been screaming, fucking tens of thousands of dollars later, screaming, just trying to make this fucking happen. Like, you never fucking listen until something really bad happened. But I know that judge understands the shift in society today, because we love to say that men are pieces of shit, and a lot of them are. A lot of fathers, not a lot of fathers, but there are fathers who are not good fathers to their kids, right? Any man can get a woman pregnant. But it takes a father to be a father, right?
Absolutely. But
what's crazy to me is, in today's times, how many of my friends are full-time single fathers without the moms being involved. And there's a lot of there's 6 people I can think of off the top of my head right now.
Wow.
People that you know.
Wow. You know, it's funny that the program I supervise now is we try to keep families intact. Right. And there's a lot of families that okay, they come together and the mom's the one with the drug problem or whatnot, but there's a stable dad, right? So, okay, dad, I'm going to give you that responsibility to ensure child safety. Well, at the end of the day, the mom goes off, and we love our single fathers. We have had in my program alone, I've been supervising a program called Family Preservation for 2 years. And in our program, we've had about 15 dads.
That's awesome.
Who have, the moms didn't follow through with services. They didn't do what they needed to do.
My situation.
Mm-hmm. And those dads stepped up to the plate. And every time with me, when the program I supervise now, every single investigation, if they're going to be ready to remove a child, they got to call us. So, hey, Gato, Cameron is the other boss. Can you take this case on without having court involvement? Because we don't want court. Like, nobody wants court. Nobody wants to go talk to a judge.
That's horrible.
Yeah. Can you guys take this case? So every single case coming through the agency, this program has been in effect for 2 years. We have a 95% success rate.
That's awesome.
And out of these cases, we have a handful of dads.
That's another thing that's sorry to cut you off. That's another thing that's really important to people to understand, that it's another thing that hits very close to home. There's not everybody should be a parent, and I say that with the most humble foundation, meaning that there are certain people in this world who are just not capable of doing more for anybody else than themselves. And that's men, that's women, that's just human beings in general. When I'm trying to keep this as unpersonal as I possibly can, but it's, if you're not the person who is going to have the ability to raise kids and you know that, and you get pregnant, or you are a father who somebody else gets pregnant, you get somebody pregnant, like, it's okay to say that's not my ability and I can't do that. And that's better than trying to fuck up a kid's life.
Absolutely.
In other words, it's more important for kids to experience goodness in a relationship with or without a parent than it is for them to experience a toxic parent. And I say that often on my Instagram, and people, it always hits, and people like hundreds and hundreds, or 1,000 people fucking like it. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because it's true. Like,
absolutely, Javi. I think you touched a subject that I always tell every parent. It takes one good parent to be healthy. We have this ideology that it has to be a 2-parent. But if you're in a 2-parent household with a toxic relationship, they're better off as single.
Right.
Those kids are better off at the end of the day.
2-parent is optimal, but if one of them is fucked up, 1 parent is the best.
Yes, your
option.
kids are going to be just fine. And I want you all to know that, because I think we have this ideology that you need 2 parents. And I hear women every day saying, even my friends that are like, oh, well, the baby daddy doesn't want to be involved, or whatever, or the baby mama, she's not ready to be a mom. Bottom line is, if you have 1 parent, and of course, all of us have family. We have support. We have friends. Takes a village. You keep saying this time and time again. Yeah. But it's okay if it's 1 parent raising a child. That kid's going to be just fine.
As long as you have support, though.
Yeah.
As long as you have support, it takes a village.
It takes a village. You got to reach out to your grandparents, to have grandparents raising your children. Like I tell, when my son told me today, Mijo, did you ever feel with that? I know my career has taken a lot of my time from you, but that's all I knew, because I had to support him, right? I had to give him the life that I wanted him to live. I had a career. I needed to save children. I needed to protect families. I needed to strengthen families. But he's like, Mom, I was okay. But guess what? He said, well, I had grandma and grandpa anyways.
Right.
And I called my mom. I'm like, can you believe my kid said that? I am so thankful for you, Mom and Dad.
Right.
To have taken that time to raise him. And he had his dad. 50-50. Didn't go to court. We had hiccups along the way, but I am so blessed that he's had, he would go back and forth. And the crazy thing is that he knows that. He acknowledges. Sure. He said, I had grandma and grandpa. But
he was also raised by a good mom and a good dad.
Yeah.
And even though it wasn't the same household, he had both of them in his life. And the grandparents complimented that. You know what I mean? So,
but even so, if there's 1 parent along the way, right? We want mom and dad to be there, but they can't be there for whatever reason, not ready, or they're unable. Some people are unable, maybe mental health problems. We have to know. I want you all to remember that I think we all want to be parents and good parents. Like we all naturally have that instinct, but there's those complicating factors I keep saying, right? Yeah. You have drugs, you have mental health, you have a history of trauma, you have poverty, you have
you're in love with tortas every day.
Yeah, you have that. Whatever.
That's my mental illness. Just kidding.
Yeah, you have all those things that may kind of prohibit you to be the parent you need to be.
Right.
There's a lot of, society today, and I want everyone to know that it's the hardest job that you're ever going to have is to be a parent. And if you're going to be that mother, I've had mothers come to me and say, Gato, because that's what my nickname is. Everybody knows me as Gato in the community. I can't do it anymore. He's better off with his grandma. I'm not ready to get clean and sober. I'm going to make that decision to give my kid to my mom. Okay.
At least they're acknowledging that.
Okay. You know what? Yeah. For me, I'm going to give you so much appraisal because you knew at this time in your life, you were not ready or able to be that healthy mother, right? Or healthy father, vice versa. I had fathers tell me the same thing.
Yeah, at least they're acknowledging it though. Mm-hmm. That's and so important.
And to me, that is so honorable. I had a mom come to me crying, like, I can't. He's better off, even with with kids that were his foster parents. There's a lot of moms who say he's better off with these foster parents, no blood ties, nothing, because I will not be able to give my child that life, and I'm gonna sacrifice him to have this good life. And I'm like, okay. You're the mom or the dad, right? That you're making this decision, and you know in your heart that that's the right decision, and it's probably the hardest decision, but whatever, and you're making that. I'm going to respect that. Yep. And to me, because I rather have people tell me, look, tell me honestly that they can't for whatever reason, but they want to make a plan for their child to have a good life. And I'm going to give you as much appraisal. If you're not that mom that's ready, or you can't get clean and sober, but you know your son's better off with your dad or your grandpa or tia, or even your friend or your comadre, or even a foster parent that's a stranger. Okay, that's a good decision, because sometimes parents make these decisions and I think we judge them and think like, oh, well, how can you just make these decisions and dump your kid? But to me, that's honorable. So
yeah, it can be honorable for sure.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you know you're not good enough to be in your kid's life, or you're not, it's not.
But you make a plan for them.
It's not good enough. But if you know that you don't have the ability to be the person that your kid needs, it's okay to leave as long as you have a plan for that kid to be somewhere.
And I'm going to respect you, because if you come tell me that, like if you come say, hey, I'm not that place, I rather him with my mom.
Right.
Okay, girl. I got you. All right.
That makes sense. And I appreciate that too, 100%. Yeah. It took a lot for me to get to where I was at in my situation, man. But I do know that regardless of what's put out there publicly, I'm appreciated. You know what I mean? So appreciated for doing what I've done for our child. So and that's everything to me, and that's all that matters. Okay, so let's move on to some topics that I think are the most important for this podcast.
Okay. We've been going off there's a lot. Like, one thing about me, I'm going to tell you how I should have warned you, is that I have a lot of stories, a lot of I go off tangent a lot. I'm very.
Oh no, we both do, but it doesn't matter. I mean, we've been covering really good topics and stuff. I've gotten a little more personal than I wanted to, but it is what it is, and I think it's important for people to understand that. We are all humans. We all deal with things differently. My want for this podcast is to understand that there are horrible things that go on out there, but there are people working to make it better. And while we are all human and we make mistakes, the majority of people in this world who are working in this field are good people. You know what I mean? Because the Gabriel Fernandez, that documentary really made social workers to be like pieces of shit and whatever else, and they were evil, and they were, you know what? I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at that documentary, it was someone's grandma, someone's mom, and someone else, and I guarantee you they weren't innately evil. So, I wanted to bring light to my situation, so people know kind of where I'm coming from, you know, my purview. But also that, you know, as a man whose mother worked in the social services field for many years, to understand that that not all social workers are evil or angry or mean or trying to take your kids. You know, they're here to help, right? So that's kind of it. But so on to the important things. So I think the important thing of this podcast is to go on and talk about, like, how do we help people? So, like, when it comes to, and I think we should break it up, right? Like domestic violence, neglect, child abuse, those kinds of things. How does somebody who's in a situation today, who is, and again, I'm going to apologize again. I said some shit that wasn't very nice a couple podcasts ago about women who are stuck in abusive relationships. But I do really feel that there's a lot of help for them today. How do women who are today stuck in a situation where they feel they can't get out of, or it's violent, and if they do get out of it, they're worried or scared about, like, how can they find help?
So first of all, if women are in situations of violence, they're and locally there's a number 211 you can call for support. The 211 will tell you whatever resources are in the community. Whatever your problem, it could be homelessness, I'm hungry, I need food banks, I need domestic violence services. But for domestic violence, we have like Interface and the Coalition. Those services, they have shelters for women and children fleeing from domestic violence.
And that can be found through 211.
Yeah, 211. Again, I do not have the number offhand, but 211 will give you all those numbers. Or Javi will get my number after, and you all can text me or call me, and I'll give Instagram, you whatever.
Some shit. Again, 211. I want to say that again because I'm not being insensitive and saying you don't fucking need to. In other words, by saying you don't need to deal with this kind of bullshit, it's really serious. So if you have a problem out there and you're dealing with serious abusive situations, please, by all means, call 211, right? 211 is what it is?
211.
Is it the same thing for child abuse?
So if you have any concerns of child abuse and neglect, it's 805-654-3200.
Say it again.
805-654-3200.
Now, this is just in our area, though. What about other areas? Are there any kind of...
every county has a hotline, right? If you have concerns of child abuse and neglect, you need to call the hotline.
Okay.
Even if it's yourself and you need help, like you can even call the hotline. Hey, I'm looking for help. This is my situation. And there's social workers that are at the hotline that would advise you of the numbers, advise you what to do, or even give you the resources you need.
Okay. But
I think the best bet right now is 211 will kind of give you everything that
is 211 statewide?
Pretty much. What I know, I think it is statewide.
Okay. So,
or at least, in California, I think every county has a number that's going to give you the resources in town. Okay.
So what we'll do is I'll compile a list before we release this, because this is not going to come out for a few days. So this will come out Monday. Today it's a rainy day. It's the 28th. It's a super rainy day. We're
my
in the
boy's
podcast.
Birthday. But I will get whatever numbers you need. Like I'll give you the resources that we use as social workers. I'll give it to you. I'll forward it to you. So if there's numbers that people reach out to you, or even Javi, you can call me. Hey, Gato, someone needs to talk about something, and I'm willing to just be someone that you want to ask questions, some advice, some consejos, or whatever you may need. Like, I will be that person. And, I am willing to answer. Maybe I can't answer completely immediately, but I will try to follow through. But if not, I will give Javi all a list of resources in town. I'm going to email you what we use.
Perfect. Yeah. And what I'll do is I'll figure out the different lines, or you and I can figure it out together for like Southern California. Like we can get LA County, Riverside, San Diego, Santa Barbara County. We can get, all the different counties in California and figure out the list and get it printed up, because a lot of my following's in Los Angeles County. So if we can find a way to, I hate that fucking stupid term, not following. A lot of people who I interact with every day on Instagram are on, or rather within Los Angeles. So if we can find a way to get a list for those people, that would be good. So we'll figure that out for you guys. We'll get that out there. So again, this was an awesome podcast. I think you and I could probably talk for a long time.
We've been talking for about
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. And if anything, we brushed through a lot of topics.
Yeah, we can do a lot. We can narrow it down to one topic and go deep into it.
I wanted to do a little bit more about, parenting and laws of child abuse and neglect. We didn't get that far, but we touched it.
We still have time. We can touch on it if you want to.
I got to go pop.
All right. So, but we'll save that for the next time.
I think that we can come back, and if there's any, look, how about this? If people are interested in this topic, have them how about you all out there, email or text or Instagram or social media, whatever you need to do, ask Javi about topics, and then I could come back and we can really cover those topics. Like if you guys have, I like those questions and answers.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do that for sure. That's actually a good idea. We could do a question and answer podcast for people who have questions about domestic violence, abuse, neglect, child abuse, that kind of stuff.
Like, hey, what happens in a scenario?
Right.
Have a list of compiled things, and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability, and I will try to refer that person to the right channels.
I like that, actually. That's a great idea. So we'll do that. We'll do that for a future podcast, maybe in a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. I'll get enough questions from you guys. And that would actually be a really good podcast, because then we could probably potentially help people out. So
yes. I mean, if you have any questions out there regarding child abuse and neglect, domestic violence services out there, hey, I just want to ask some questions. I'm curious. Hey, my comadre is hitting her son, or whatever.
She's all drunk and ate a bowl of menudo. She's punching her kid. What do I do?
Yeah. Like if you have anything, then I will try to answer to the best of my ability with experience, expertise, and my knowledge, skills, and ability is what we usually say.
Perfect.
So get those questions, list of questions, and then maybe you and I can reconvene, and I'll make sure, like I'll try, and maybe Javi get them to me prior so I can do whatever research I need to do.
Absolutely.
So I can have the information I need to cascade.
Absolutely.
To all you. But I think there's a lot. I know from knowing my community and questions, like it might even be like, hey, my neighbor is hitting his wife and what should I do? Or, hey, this kid, there's a teacher calling, this kid looks really fragile and really scared. What should I do? How do I call the hotline?
Right.
When should I make a child abuse report? Hey, Michael, my mom is, and my dad are fighting, like those kind of things. Get those questions out to Javi, and I will come back and I will have them prepared.
Sounds good.
In ample time, so I can give you the proper information.
Perfect.
Needed.
Yeah. It could even be like something like, hey, my comadre is not putting the salsa on the toste locos. What do I do? But I want to punch her. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
But
it could be whatever it needs. But I think like if you have questions already prepared for me, and I come, because today we covered a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We touched on a lot of different topics, because we can go on and on and on. Mm-hmm. You and I could probably talk for like fucking 5 days. Because
even when I walked in the door, we're talking about 5,000 topics. Yeah. And I don't know if you ever really finished each topic.
We never did. Yeah. So that's because I talk too much.
And so do I.
That's
so
why
we
I
have
do
two
this
talkative people. But if you have those questions and answers, some of you may already know me out there. I know a lot of people in the community, and you all already know you can call me if you know me. But if you really want to have a heart-to-heart with the professional, Javi will get you in touch with me. But yeah, get those questions together, and then you and I will reconvene.
Sounds good. So we're going to wrap it up. Thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. I had a great time with the guest today. She's awesome. And nothing but love and respect for this woman for many years. So for those of you that are listening, please, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Pandora, any one of those ones, just subscribe to the podcast, because this way when I launch a new one, you won't have to worry about it. It'll just pop up as a notification. So again, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. We had an awesome time. And
thank you, everyone.
Yeah, give a shout out to Caro for being here. I know her as Carolina, but we'll call her Caro today. All right, you guys, have a good one. Peace out.
Peace.